Any sign of the hostages?
We found them both dead, and the gear from the shuttle. By the looks of them, I'd say our cabinet minister and his aide are UAC. Something big was about to happen here.
Good work, Matt. Clear the area. No traces. Get the men ready to move.
Okay, guys, move out.
Whoa, Steve, you're hit. You're bleeding, man.
Ain't got time to bleed.
You got time to duck?
Damn it, Ryan, you stirred up the hornet's nest. Now we're in a whole heap of shit.
We're gonna need a miracle now. What the hell is that?
It's Retro Game Squad, baby.
From the shores of hell to the far-flung reaches of space, the demonic alien horde presses on. Only one elite team of pasty white boys remain to push back the tide. Known only by their code name, they are the Retro Odyssey Extinction Squad.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to we're on episode 13 now of the Retro Odyssey podcast. People are still listening to this for some reason. 13, unlucky for some, I guess, but hopefully this one won't be so much of a disaster. Anyway, I'm your host, Adam Miller, and as always, I'm joined by Matt, Ryan, and Steve. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
We also have a special guest today, straight from the amazing Retro Game Squad podcast. It's John Hupp. Hi, John.
Hey there. I
How
hope
you doing?
having me on the podcast isn't making it unlucky. Just the number.
Just a number, yeah. It's nothing to do with you. Don't worry.
Well, see, here's my question. Now that we have somebody from an actual, established podcast on, are we like a legitimate podcast now and not just four guys yelling into mics?
No, we're
line
still
players.
definitely...
We'll always be four guys just yelling into mics.
We're a legitimate podcast when we get a sponsorship from 8-Bit Dough. If you guys are listening, we've
We all
advertised enough
use
for
your
you.
controllers.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. As long as you guys are having fun, that's all it's about. And I've had a lot of fun prepping for this episode, so I'm excited to get into it.
Well, we always have fun here. Well, except when Ryan chooses shit games.
Leave me alone. I've done
I'm
it
known
one
for-
time so far.
I've been known for slinging some shit around, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Poor Alex.
Well, anyway,
yeah,
it's a delight to have you here. It's a good episode for you to join as well, because I believe you're quite a fan of first-person shooters.
Yeah, it's kind of a passion of mine. I've started from DOS days all the way up to still playing them, so I'm going to have a lot to say. And we have quite the list.
Yeah, definitely. So is first-person shooter your favorite genre, would you say, or...?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I dabble with real-time strategy. I'm a PC gamer at heart, so that probably explains a lot. Yeah, but just give me a mouse and keyboard and some mouse luck, and I'll shoot some demons.
Nice.
Just point me at them.
Well, I think this is a pretty good genre to cover. I mean, personally, I'm a fan of old-school first-person shooters, not just Doom-like ones, but I was into Half-Life, which we're covering, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, which we've covered before. I sort of went off probably around the Call of Duty kind of era when that style of first-person shooter came in. I just couldn't really get into them. I mean, I liked Crysis, but, the other kind of games of that style, like Battlefield and Call of Duty, I just couldn't get to grips with. I mean, I'm starting to get back into them now with, things like the Doom reboot and Wolfenstein reboot. But yeah, I kind of went through a period where I just stopped playing first-person shooters.
See, it's funny you mentioned that because that's exactly when I started playing first-person shooters. I didn't start until the original Xbox.
Oh, interesting.
All right.
Yeah, I kicked off with GoldenEye, and then my friend had Perfect Dark and Turok.
Yeah, I don't
But then
remember what game got me into it. I know that Half-Life was an early one and GoldenEye was an early one. And I remember wanting to get Duke Nukem, but I was in the game store, and my parents just went up with the game and went, "Is this suitable for him?" And they just went, "No."
No.
Funny
There's
story
nudity in
about
it, there's
that.
violence. I don't think it would be suitable.
Yeah, well, funny story about that. My first experience with Duke 3D, there was actually a mode that you could disable all the adult content. And I remember finding out that password was like the goal of mine for the longest time, just to see some of the like extra jibs and things they introduced.
All right.
Some of the racy content.
Yes, racy content. I could have a politically correct term for that.
Nice. I didn't realize it had that.
Yeah, apparently it was saved in a plain text file in the directory, but
All right. But yeah, I mean, in fairness to the game store, on another occasion we went in and I wanted Perfect Dark, and my parents asked, and they went, "There's nothing wrong with this game." You know, at one point a character says like "bitch," and that's about as bad as the language gets, and the rest of it's just quite tame. And they went, "I don't even know why it's an 18. He'll be fine."
Is that really an 18?
It's an 18. It's Perfect Dark, and I have absolutely
Really?
no idea why.
Yeah.
It's probably because you kill so many people.
I mean,
No, but
yeah,
then like there are other games where you kill so many people and they're like 15s.
yeah. I mean, how many games are you a mass murdering psychopath? All of them.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure, because it's not like you're a bad guy and you're killing good people. I mean, you're killing aliens for like half of it.
yeah,
Well,
I think
not half.
anytime bullets are involved and it's a first-person shooter, I think that was still a hot territory when that game was out.
Yeah.
That is true.
It
We
could
are
have just
coming-
been the climate of the
Yeah.
Well, most likely because when those games were hitting, we were just coming out of, obviously, like Doom had just come out and that was extra violent, and the ESRB had just been put together after the whole outrage over the likes of Mortal Kombat.
a Night Trap,
Yeah.
the horror.
So game ratings hit and they probably went pretty hardcore for a second.
Yeah, and it's on a Nintendo console too. You have to think about how that skewed that series of games.
This is true.
Yeah,
Smash
but I,
Brothers
mean,
Melee is rated teen, I believe.
Yeah,
Is it really?
but I think GoldenEye was a 12 over here.
I think, yeah, I know it was a teen over here, which is
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
And maybe it's to do with the fact that the bodies don't disappear in
Well, and
Perfect Dark.
also, I don't know about in Perfect Dark, but I know I know it. If GoldenEye was only a 12, because I know, like, in multiplayer, as you get shot up, you get blood soaked.
Yeah, because there's blood in it. So maybe it's just to do with the bodies, like, lying there and still
I don't
being...
know. Weird.
I don't know.
I never understood the age rating, and I still don't. It's like a really odd rating choice for the game. And it probably affected sales, too.
Oh, I'm
Because
sure it
if you-
did.
If it was like a 15 or something, it probably would have sold a lot more. I mean, it was a very popular game, but I can't help but feel that the game was slightly kind of, put in a bad position with the age rating.
Well, yeah, I mean, an M-rated game on the N64, that's practically unheard of.
Well, exactly. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
it's
think
cutting off
Nintendo allowed
most of
it.
your audience.
Yeah, that's kind of like AO being a death or adults only being a death sentence for a game. Because Grand
Yeah.
Theft Auto ran into that when they got it rebranded for a second from a little
Yeah.
hot coffee.
Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, I mean, with some games, like maybe with Grand Theft Auto, because of what kind of game it is, it can probably work in its favour. I mean, obviously, there's still the matter of getting a hold of a copy, but I think maybe it will increase the demand being an adults only because of what kind of game it is. They can sort of use that to its advantage.
Yeah, you just got to find play. Well, I mean, nowadays it's not an issue, but there have been times where shops refuse to carry adult-only games. But now
Right.
digital distribution is not an issue.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
true.
yeah. So anyway, first-person shooters, we're going to be dealing with a lot of violence. I don't think there are many first-person shooters that aren't violent. Not that I can think of off the top of my head anyway. But yeah, we're going to be dealing with some pretty violent games, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very cathartic episode, at the very least. Right, so I think that because we have a guest, we'll probably start with John's pick. So we'll have a little bit of a musical interlude, and then we'll get cracking with John's pick for this month.
All right, I guess I have the honor, and thanks again for having me, introducing the first game of this list. I chose Half-Life, partially because you guys made awesome choices for your other ones. We'll get into those soon, but for Half-Life, a lot of people are familiar with it. I guess I should kind of talk about it like nobody's ever played it before, and if you haven't, then you better put this on your list. The game focuses on everyone's favorite physicist, Gordon Freeman. It's a first-person shooter in every sense of the word. It came right after Quake, and actually some of the engine code was built off of John Carmack's code from Quake, because he kind of standardized the way games use polygon rendering. And actually you can find traces of Quake in even modern games, just with some of the papers he wrote after he did Quake. But it's the first like cinematic, very story-driven romp through this world where you're a scientist and a lab experiment goes wrong, and then you open a portal to a new dimension, and then there's aliens, and then the government gets involved, and the military, and it's wild. It's blossomed into this huge thing where they made a second one, and that's it. And we're like, what's up, Valve? And they don't want to say anything, but we'll focus on this first one. The game had a bunch of spin-offs, and what was cool with the spin-offs is that they weren't sequels as much as they were sequences of the story in line with the events of Half-Life. And we'll primarily focus on, Half-Life as it is in itself. But
the other ones were sort of retellings. They were all the same story, but just from a different perspective.
Yeah, you're taking control of different characters. And actually one of the things that I wanted to do with this was Adam and I played, and my focus was to do the PS2 version, because that's a version that I had, but there was an exclusive campaign called Decay that during the sequence when you're playing as Gordon Freeman, a specimen sample comes up from an elevator, and Decay kind of takes place where you're the people prepping that sample and you put it in, and then the incident happens. And it was neat seeing that from that perspective, because that's a version of the game that I hadn't played before. Adam, what did you think of Decay? We played an official PC mod of it, so it wasn't the tried and true version of it. Yeah, we had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we had a lot of trouble setting it up, because the mod version, it requires you to jump through loads of different hoops in order to get it running, and we had a fair bit of trouble, to say the least. I mean, that's not necessarily Decay's fault, because it was like a PS2 game, so you can't really criticize the game for that. But yeah, the game itself was pretty neat. It does have like some moments where it crosses into the main story. Like early on, you deliver the sample to Gordon Freeman, and you're both working to get the machine up and running. And it's kind of nice seeing it from that perspective. And there's a few other moments that kind of link into the main story. Like, again, the scientist that phones the military, you help that scientist in order to get the communication relay up and running. And those kind of twists are quite nice. Unfortunately, those kind of crossover bits are pretty much all the story there is to it, because it just feels like a sequence of events other than that. But yeah, it's quite a cool experience.
One thing that kind of confused me actually about Decay is in the main game, Gordon Freeman is clearly this established scientist. Kind of everyone knows who he is. And in Decay, they refer to him as the new guy.
Oh yeah, I noticed that. I think that was just kind of how they chose to portray him.
Yeah, I think he is supposed to be relatively new. Yeah, I'm just trying to remembering some of the dialogue from the original game, but I think that you have recently got transferred to Black Mesa.
Oh yeah, because like in the very beginning when you're doing Job Simulator, they walk up and you're like, "Oh, Freeman, you're going to be going in the room today, and don't worry, it's all super safe and nothing's going to go wrong." Of course, spoiler alert, everything goes wrong.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Just like, whoops, we've opened a dimensional portal.
Yeah, but I think that's what they meant by new guy, from what I recall.
Yeah, that sounds right, now that you mention it.
But yes, some of the design in Decay can be a little bit iffy. like, John, did you have a chance to play the PS2 version after we finished?
Yeah, I didn't get as far as we did with the playing co-op. It was a friend and I playing local, and honestly, the controls weren't great with the PS2 controllers. It's
Really?
definitely a mouse and keyboard style
Yeah.
game. Not that it's unplayable, it wasn't.
It's just
I-
awkward.
So the normal difficulty was about what we ran into with the co-op mod that we played, because when you're running a server, like we had to set up a classic Half-Life server to run this mod, and that's what took so long when Adam and I were playing. But there was no difficulty setting that you could set, and you could save with the PS2 version, but it wasn't as advantage as we thought it was going to be after having experienced. We got up to like the third to last level, I think.
Yeah, I
you
think
and
we
I-
just had
Yeah.
2 or 3 levels left.
But there's a neat little Easter egg too when you beat that after completing an Easter egg, is you get to play the game as an alien, and there's a level specifically tailored for the alien, and then there's after you beat that you can start the Half-Life story as a Vortigaunt, which I think is really funny, and it offers an interesting playthrough of the game, which makes the PS2 version very unique in the way it interprets the game.
Yeah, and it's weird because there's not really any kind of mods of that. It's something that they never really transitioned to the PC one. Like, you'd expect, someone to incorporate that Vortigaunt mode into the original Half-Life, but
Yeah,
couldn't
it just
really
never
see
happened. Yeah, but yeah, it's neat. Half-Life as did you guys play through how far did you guys get in the single player story for Half-Life?
Not very.
I completed it about a decade ago. I went through a bit of it again. Maybe like a couple hours in, but I didn't complete it again on this particular playthrough. But I have done before.
Okay.
I want to say I got about an hour in or so. I wasn't able to do anything with Decay because you can't really play Decay with one person, even though there is a one-player option.
Yeah, there's a button to take over control of the other person to do some of the puzzles.
It's not in the button mapping as an option.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah.
They don't
I
show
think we
it.
read it in the README. Yeah, it's not a perfect mod. But yeah, playing through the original Half-Life outside of Decay was a lot of fun too. That was a good revisit. You could spend a lot of time there. It's interesting to see there wasn't really any other games that told a story like that. I mean, it was still Gordon Freeman is a silent character who doesn't have any voice acting at all, so it's really just him showing up into an area and like shit's happening and then you got to shoot your way
Around
through it. Yeah, it's kind of Doom, but there's more overarching story, and the weapon selection is fantastic. There's just a whole slew of just different weapons that you can get with a lot of them having alt fires too. Like the machine gun had a grenade that you could throw or that you could shoot from the barrel, and that sort of thing. So it's just a really very well complete thought as a game, which is why I thought Half-Life had to be on this list, given what you guys had already chosen already. It's just kind of like that.
Well, Half-Life was one of my early loves in video gaming because it was a game that I remember seeing in PC Gamer magazine and thinking, this looks amazing. So I ended up getting it, and I just played it pretty much constantly until Perfect Dark came out. And then my love shifted to Perfect Dark.
Right.
But yeah, I played Half-Life, and I played all the expansions, Opposing Force, Blue Shift, and Gunman Chronicles. Love them all. I played tons of Half-Life mods, and I pretty much know the game more or less inside out in terms of, the actual main core game. And it tells the story so well, and it's really well designed. I mean, like, even from the start, where you've got an overly long 5-minute train journey to work, and then you just getting into your work clothes and heading towards the lab. Greetings.
Make sure to stop off at the break room and blow up the dude's lunch.
Yeah, his reaction to that's great.
Oh, I didn't realize you could do that.
Yeah, you can go into the break room and like you can kick out and take all the sodas, and then you can go over the microwave and you can just mash it a whole bunch of times. And I guess what you do is you turn it on high, and then it's like vers for a second, then pops, and you saw his lunch blow up, and he's like, "Oh, what the hell? What are you doing, Freeman?"
But the great thing is that's actually referenced in the last Half-Life game that was made, Half-Life 2 Episode 2. because the guy, Dr. Magnuson, I think his name is, he says, don't think I forgot about the microwave incident.
See, so in contrast to Adam, this was actually my first experience with Half-Life, like at all. I had actually I'd never played the game before, so it was interesting for me because I've played a lot of Portal, and I could clearly see the mechanics. I could see where the foundation of Portal came from. But yeah, I mean, I did think it was a pretty good game. I wasn't able to get super far into it, but I could. I did some research on the rest of it. And I thought it was a really good game. Like, I'm not surprised that it had the impact that it did.
Well, one of the things they did so well, and one of the things I loved about it, was it had so many set pieces in it. From, like, tiny things like early on after the accident, you pick up the crowbar and you get to an elevator shaft. You press the elevator button, and the elevator just comes plummeting down with some scientists and a guard.
Oh, yeah. I remember it. Yeah.
And there's other bits as well, like there's one bit where you see a scientist and he's trying to push a filing cabinet on top of a head crab, and he succeeds. And then he starts cheering, going, yeah! And another one attacks him from behind.
Yeah, I remember that. That was funny.
But then there's like big set pieces as well, like there's an entire level built around this tentacle creature. So this creature has just come out of this big, like, test chamber or something, and it's in the middle. And what you've got to do is you've got to work your way around kind of silently, because it hunts on sound. And you've got to activate the oxygen, you've got to activate the fire, so you can burn this thing by, turning on the blast pit and just torching it. And that's an entire level.
Yeah, the game does a really good job introducing that character too, because when you're first introduced to it, it breaks through the wall and grabs a guy, and you know exactly the danger. Valve did a really good job portraying the situations that you're in, and this was one of the first games that really had NPC characters with that level of interaction with the players and just kind of the environment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even though like every scientist is the same and every security guard is the same, they all have like a certain character to them, and all the Barneys and all the Walters.
Yes.
There's one of the scientists that you walk up to, because when you're running through the first level, most of the scientists will have like a little bit of health back for you, like 15 health or whatever, just a little bit of a boost.
Oh yeah, because you can speak to them when you're on health, and they're like, you need a bit of a boost.
But like, you won't get it again. And one of them was like I talked to him, and he's like, oh, here, have some health. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you're going to give me health. And I talked to him again. He's like, haven't I helped you enough already? It's like, oh, excuse me. We've just summoned hell to the lab.
But yeah, it's quite neat as well, because the story is actually pretty good, because you phone for help. Well, the scientists phone for help, as we mentioned before when we briefly talked about Decay. And the military comes. But because it's all to do with like aliens and stuff, they're here as like cleanup. So they're wanting to kill everyone and just erase all traces of the incident. Oh. And then you've got like these assassins that come in for some reason.
Yeah, they're kind of the weakest encounter of the whole series, but they still kind of fit in with the whole what they were going for.
Yeah, I still don't really understand like the purpose and why they were there. I think they were like an extra cleanup squad after the military left.
Yeah, well, it kind of adds to the mysteriousness of the G-Man who you get introduced to. And
definitely.
That starts the whole conspiracy theory there.
So, Stephen, you said this was your first time. Did you notice the G-Man, which was basically the guy wearing a blue suit?
I did see him. I watched the all of Decay, so I did see him at the end of that.
Okay.
Because he appears a lot in the original Half-Life. If you're looking carefully, you can see him observing you from different spots.
Oh,
like one place you'll go to a door and you'll see his face behind a door. Like in the train journey, he's in one of the glass rooms that you pass. And he's basically just a continual presence throughout the whole thing. And he always seems to be there.
So is he supposed to be Gabe?
Well, I don't think he's supposed to be Gabe.
Maybe in spirit. Nobody really knows, which is Valve did a really good job kind of keeping his his purpose
Well,
hidden from everybody.
Huh.
It's sort of become a bit more realized in Half-Life 2 because they
Yes.
built upon the character and there's definitely a lot more in it. And then the story just kind of ended with Half-Life 2 Episode 2, so they never really concluded it. And you kind of felt like they probably would have given some kind of resolution to that.
Well, the problem
Yeah,
is
let
Valve
it
can't
have.
count to 3.
Yeah, right.
Well, the thing is, Steam's getting a little bit of competition recently, so they might have to start making new video games again.
The rumor is they might have to, or they might be shifting into VR for their next Half-Life title. Should be interesting.
That'll be a bit of a weird move because VR's not that popular. I mean, there's a bunch of people that do use it, but if they did Half-Life VR, how much would it really sell? I think
and
Good enough. They probably want to. I mean, they want to move their platform's equipment at this point because Valve is unofficially working on a headset of their own, and they already have the platform, and it's actually picking up a lot more than you'd think. But yeah, time will tell on that one.
yeah, I mean, the Steam box did really well, so I'm sure they're...
False
Um,
start,
Let's not
maybe.
forget about the Steam controller also.
hey, you
Oh.
laugh. I bought those day one.
Yeah, I have both as well.
But yeah, I think really, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with VR. I kind of think they should just make it where it's possible to play without VR.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah,
just kind of have
it's-
both options.
It would be a very ballsy business move, but with Valve, I could see them doing it.
Yeah.
They need to bring VR down to a more consumer-friendly price range, but
Yeah.
That's the
Still.
main thing. I think VR's not a point yet with technology or price to warrant that kind of decision. I don't,
Right.
but we'll see.
Well, Half-Life
It
2
might
was
get
a
there.
big deal when it came out. They pushed a lot of people to get new graphics cards and everything,
Yeah.
so we could see. I don't know. Yeah, again, it's such a an untouched playfield right now. Like it's still in its infancy. It could go either way. It's
Yeah,
not
we'll
quite
see.
the way of 3D films yet, but we'll see.
See, I think the real secret to VR is to have a VR game where you're playing a game. Like you're not like it's not the VR you're assuming a first person perspective and it's all VR and you look around, but like you put on your headset and you sit down and there is a Super Nintendo in front of you and a TV and you have to get all the cables and plug everything in and blow
So
on
like
the
Mega Drive
cartridge. And,
Classics overlay.
yeah.
That actually exists.
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's a thing?
Yeah, it's called EMU VR. You get consoles and you put the cartridges in and they're linked to instances of RetroArch and they play on a TV, but you actually pull the cables from the back and put it into the back of whatever next console you want to play and you can boot games. I can't even believe we're there.
That is so funny. It's like what people were doing with Minecraft, where they would make PCs and run Minecraft on it. It's like that taking to the next level.
Hey, it plays Doom.
There you go.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So Half-Life, I enjoyed it. It was cool revisiting it too. And has anybody played the remaster, like the fan made remaster of it?
I have
I didn't
not.
even know
I
that
want
was
to
a
look into
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Black Mesa.
Everything up until the alien portion of the game, which is like the last like eighth of the game, not even is free to play on Steam. And it's a neat way to revisit everything because it's using the newest source. It's different than the source engine release. They actually updated all the graphics too. And it
Yeah,
works
they
really
changed
well.
things though, and they changed some of the physics and changed some of the like puzzles and stuff. I
Uh,
didn't care for it.
Yeah,
I played through Black Mesa, and there was a few points where I was stuck due to bugs, and I couldn't proceed. Like there was a bit with a ceiling fan that you get to, like the big fan that you end up blowing up, and I just couldn't get past it because it was bugged, and I ended up having to use no clip and just having to go around it, and I didn't find it an enjoyable experience because I just grew frustrated with it because it felt like the Half-Life game that I knew and I loved but broken, and that kind of set me in a bit of a negative tone against the mod.
Right.
I mean, I appreciate that it's free and I appreciate the effort they've done to it, but I felt like my experience with it overall was kind of a negative one.
Yeah, that's a really huge turnoff. It was really rough around the edges when it first came out, but they're still actively developing it, so we'll see where
Yeah.
the future of that goes.
I mean, when I played it, this was before it was on Steam. So it was,
Right, I
kind of,
remember.
I suppose, sort of early version, but it was still up until Zen. So it was
Right.
still like all that kind of content. But
Yeah, that's the version that I played. I still haven't played any of the Zen stuff. I don't even know if that's out.
probably not.
Yeah, I know they're still working on it, but
So, like, Stephen, you didn't get that far. Ryan, have you got to the Zen levels?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so Matt, then, what's your
Yes.
opinion of Zen?
Well, my opinion of that kind of extends to the entire game, really. And I mentioned in the when we were talking about Metroid Prime, there are 3 words that just sent dread into my heart, and that is
First-person
first-person platforming. And the game is full of it. I mean, Zen has a lot of it, but there's also a lot throughout the game, and it just really pisses me off, to be honest. It's the one thing. Well, I was going to say it's the one thing that pisses me off about the game, but there are several things. But it is one of the main things, and you've got those big floating islands in the alien levels, which are a pain in the arse. I mean, you've got your long jump by that point, but it's easy to miss, and I just find the whole thing frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, Zen is kind of weird. I like the idea behind it, but I find that it's a bit hit and miss. Like, the bit at the beginning where you long jump in between the platforms is kind of crappy. And then you meet and fight the Gunarch, which is kind of cool. And you get to the factory where all the alien slaves are at, and they're working. There's these big barrels and conveyor belts and stuff. And that's really neat. And then you get to like the final boss, and you're like, I like the design of it, but the fight is kind of shit. So I find that Zen is a bit of a mixed bag. I don't hate it as much as like a lot of people do, but I don't particularly love it either. It does feel like an anticlimactic end, but it's not too bad in my opinion. But unlike you, I don't have an issue with the platform in this game. I find that the first-person platforming in it is fine. I don't actually remember any points where I've had an issue with it. But again, you know, I've played this game since it first came out, and I played it continually, so that could just be like muscle memory at this point.
I'm a little biased as well because of that. I do remember Zen being the, probably, I don't want to say low point because it's not the worst, but it wasn't my favorite part of the game. And a lot of it comes from having experienced that first, like, good chunk, more than good chunk, like the whole 3/4 of the game being awesome, and then the Zen just being this weird thing. And especially that last, what is that, like a floating brain baby thing that you have to kill? I don't even know how to describe that to someone.
Yeah, he's basically just a floating psychic baby. I kind of feel that Zen would have been better if they had just cut it down. Like I said, the alien factory bit was cool, and I think having an outside bit, just like on the main land when you land after the platforming section, having a bit there, maybe have the Gunarch fight, then the alien factory, then Nylanth, and then done. And then maybe make the Nylanth fight a bit better. And then it would have been better, just cut it down and make it a little bit tighter, and it would have been good. But it's kind of just there.
Yeah.
And
they should have done something like the end of Quake when you have to jib the final enemy. Something like that, where it's kind of out of the box thinking rather than just like load this thing up with bullets or rockets or whatever you got.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, as you say, with Quake, it was a bit more of an intelligent kind of solution. And this was like an intelligent first-person shooter. So it really should have been more like a puzzle. Like with the tentacles, like we were saying, where the whole level's built around it. Maybe there was, you know, the presence of the Nylanth is there as soon as you enter the Zen, and you have to find a way to kill it, even though you can't kill it with conventional weaponry. I don't know, something like that would have been better, maybe.
Yeah, if it was kind of like floating high above you when you first, like, enter, and you had to, like, work your way up to it.
Well, the thing is as well, in Half-Life 2, the alien slaves are your friends, because you end up freeing them from slavery after you destroy the Nylanth. So maybe even have, like, a section where the alien slaves come to your help and they kill it. So you end up organizing a revolution somehow. Like you end up having to open the doors of the factory to let them escape,
Right.
and then you basically help them kill it. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to wonder if they had some grand idea for it and just couldn't pull it off because of the time, and that's
Yeah,
what we ended
maybe.
up with. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, outside of this end part, I think the game was a pretty solid experience. I don't feel like there was the levels were guiding enough. They were able to guide you in such a way that it's pretty much linear gameplay. Some of the areas are pretty open, but they still do a good job. And just the
It feels very
presentation.
open, but
Yeah.
it's not like it needed a map or anything, because as you say, they do kind of guide you.
Yeah, the first segment when you get on that cliff face and it just opens up into that big skybox was one of those mind-blowing moments where they did a good job. It's definitely, it looks open, but it's really just you're scaling this cliff face.
Yeah.
Actually, there is something I wanted to mention about that cliff face bit. You know, you go around the cliff face and then you enter back in via a pipe, and when you go to the pipe, one of the crabs actually jumps out at you, and I instinctively step backwards. Now,
And
you're
fell
on
off
a
the
cliff
cliff.
face. I fell to my death because of that little thing. That little prick bloody crab.
You see, by that point in the game, I was kind of expecting crabs out of every kind of small hole, because they're everywhere. As soon as you enter a vent, there's a crab there. Whenever you go into like a little ceiling thing, there's a crab there.
Yeah, for some reason I just wasn't expecting it there, and I just panicked.
And he just popped out.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's quite a lot of good set pieces in it. There's the train level as well, which is, well, not train, but like what even is it? I suppose it is like a little train that you've got to ride.
Kind of like a cart kind of thing. I mean, it was an interesting concept. I think that went on a little bit too long, because
Yeah.
you go forward for about 20 seconds, obstacle, find a way to get the obstacle away. Another 20 seconds, another obstacle, find a way to clear the obstacle. And that went on for a while.
But then you've got the bit like outside, there's a section where you're going underwater and there's the attack helicopter shooting at you, which is quite intense. Then you've got those underwater things, those creatures where you get the crossbow from the cage. That's pretty cool. Yeah, the game just has like loads of set piece moments, and I just find like the game quite memorable because of that. Like whenever I think about the game, I think of, oh, there's this bit, and then there's this bit, and then there's this bit, and it just seems like there's loads of great moments one after another. And for me, it's just a fantastic experience.
Well, I definitely think that it has one of the best openings of a first-person shooter ever. Just that whole going to work thing, just a little bit of world building to start you off. It reminds me a little bit of the opening to Silent Hill 2, where nothing really happens for about 10 minutes. But it's setting up atmosphere, it's setting up the world.
But Half-Life 2 also did that as well. I think the Half-Life games are just quite good at doing that. Because like Half-Life 2, you're kind of going through this system and then you get pulled aside. And then you work your way through an apartment building and you see like, all the shit that's going on. I think Half-Life does it best, the original one, but I think all the games do it quite well.
Well, what I like best about the intro of Half-Life while you're riding on the train is the intercom is just going and talking about Black Mesa and how great it is, and tell your friends, and we're safe, and everything's important, and guidelines. It's this whole opening sequence, and like there's a leaking waste tank, and clearly this is a very
unsafe,
not well organized, extremely unsafe environment. The entire time it's just being built up for disaster.
Yeah,
a foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I like it. I like it quite a lot. So, Matt, you've given your opinions on it. You think it's good, but you don't like the platforming, no?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my main issue is with the platforming. There are certain sections where I really, really think you should have had a map. But, generally, as
you
John
need a
said,
map for everything.
I was going to say
it is
Matt's
kinda
trend
linear.
is Matt.
Let's get a map for Tetris.
It is more or less linear, but there are certain sections where you think, where the hell am I meant to go right now? But for the most part, yeah, it's enjoyable. I think it goes on a little bit too long, personally. but it's okay for what it is.
And Ryan and Steve?
I kind of in the same boat there, where I feel like what I was kind of getting a System Shock vibe from the game, not wholly, but in sort of the survival aspect. And you don't, starting off at least, you don't get a lot of bullets. You got a crowbar, and the crowbar is not a very effective weapon. It's fine against head crabs, and that's basically it.
And Zombie too are decent enough.
But you're not showered in ammunition like a lot of other FPSs today. Like you have more than enough. You kind of have to pick your battles. Do I take a little bit of damage here because I know I'm going to come across something where I just should use the gun? Or do I just want to avoid this and use the gun now and hope for the best later? And that's not a bad thing. It fits into the survival, the survival horror, because that's kind of what Half-Life 2 or Half-Life is. It's kind of a survival horror low-key. Definitely, stuff's horrible.
Yeah, I suppose so.
It fits well enough. But I didn't get far enough to get into the platforming, and one thing that System Shock did was it threw really awful platforming at you. Maybe it's System Shock 2 that did really horrible platforming?
I don't know, I've not played those games.
Yeah, I think it was the second one.
I think it was the second.
Was a little more
The second one threw in
disturbing.
some really awful platforming at you, and it didn't need to be there, and it was really rough. But it also did the whole thing where you have like a pipe as your main weapon. I think it was a pipe. It's been so long. And it's ammo rationing for a long, long time. And that's where the difficulty comes from, is planning out your next move. And that's what the vibe I got when I was playing with Half-Life, which is not a bad thing. But it's not also, it was definitely a thing that I was like, basically like PTSD flashbacks to System Shock 2.
Especially if you're going from like Doom to Half-Life. You're like, where's all my bullets gone?
See, at least in Doom, you're picking up bullets left and right.
Yeah.
And Quake, same thing. You can pick up any of those shooters around the same time. It's ammo for days.
Yeah, that's true. And John, presumably you liked it. It was your pick.
Yes, this is my favorite story-based game for PC, which is why I wanted it on this list. It at any point they could have made a design choice, either giving you way too little ammo or way too much platforming, but I think everything is just right. Yeah, especially for the time. I mean, there's a lot of gripes that you could give it, but it's not to a point where it's unplayable, which is the big thing, and it set a lot of precedent for shooters going forward.
Yeah. And did you ever play any of the expansions? Apart from, obviously, Decay?
Oh, all of them. Yeah. It was that's why I was excited to play Decay, because I had played all the other ones. I love the expanded universe, because a lot of games focus on did you read the book that was brought out? But this series specifically, they put out more games than they did literature elsewhere, and I like that, because I was one of the I forgot to mention that. Yeah, because I didn't really see any books for the game when I was doing my research. I don't know if there were any Half-Life novels that came out.
I don't think so. I don't remember any.
So yeah, it's a neat way to tell a story, and I definitely like it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. Okay, so with Half-Life out of the way, we're going to move on to Matt's pick. So let's just have a little bit of a break, listen to some music, and we'll move on to his choice.
My pick for this month is one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic, first-person shooters of all time. It kind of set the standard, as it were. It is, of course, Doom, which was released in 1993 by id Software as a follow-up to their super successful Wolfenstein 3D. And it really brought the FPS genre to the forefront, and it became this super cultural phenomenon almost, where Doom was installed on more PCs than Windows 95, I believe it was at one point.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yes, that is an accurate statement.
And it just took over the entire world for quite a long time. And this came out before the term first-person shooter was actually coined, and every first-person shooter that came out after that for a number of years was just called a Doom clone. It was that ubiquitous. Basically, it is just FPS distilled down to like the very, very core. You've got a lot of different guns, you've got a lot of different enemies, you've got to get to the exit and kill everything in your way. And
so how was Doom categorized then? If first-person shooter didn't come till like a lot later, and then we had Doom clone, was it given a category at the time?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I don't remember. It might have just been called a shooter at that point. I'm not sure when the term first-person shooter was actually coined, but it was definitely after Doom, because like I said, everything else was called like a Doom clone for several years.
If you think about this, it was the early 90s, so it was probably categorized as a violent devil's video game.
Oh, it was by a lot of people.
That was the official category, was a tool of Satan.
Yeah, probably by John Romero himself.
I mean, he was nuts enough.
He was?
Yeah.
He still is.
Nuts, but also passionate.
Passionate, I think that's a better word to describe it.
It also popularized the shareware format, where the very first episode of the game, Knee Deep in the Dead, was released for free. You could just download it from anywhere. It was on a lot of discs at the time, and then you would like mail order the rest of the game. And then in 1995, they released a physical edition called Ultimate Doom, which had like a 4th episode tagged onto it, which is like a super hardcore episode as well. It is like tough as nails. But it's one of those games where you can kind of like change the difficulty to suit your own capabilities. There are like 5 different difficulty levels, and basically there's something there for everyone. If you're like really, really terrible at these kind of games, you can just whack it down to the lowest difficulty and blast through it.
As long as you don't mind being called a wimp or whatever the lowest is called.
Oh yeah, they are a little bit sarky, especially like when you quit the game as well. It gives you all these little quips like, "Are you sure that you really want to play DOS more than you want to play me?"
So what are the difficulty modes? Does anyone remember them all? There's Ultra Violent, Nightmare, Please Don't Hurt Me, and I don't remember the other 2.
Wait, wasn't one of them Hurt Me Plenty?
Hurt Me Plenty?
Yeah.
And then the lowest was something like Wimp or something like that.
No. And I think the lowest was Take It Easy, wasn't it?
I get them mixed up with the Wolfenstein entries, like Can I Play Daddy and all those other ones.
And I get them mixed up with Duke Nukem.
Yeah, there's 5 difficulty levels. You have Nightmare, Ultra Violence, Hurt Me Plenty, Hey Not Too Rough, and I'm Too Young to Die.
That's what it was.
Ah, yeah.
And on that lowest difficulty, you take kind of like half damage.
And there's only like half the enemies as well.
Yeah, and you get double ammo as well.
Yeah. So it's pretty good for the casual shooter fan.
Yeah. Like I say, it has a lot of different kind of like guns. It's got like everything from like pistol, shotgun, chain gun, all like your weapons that kind of became classic in first-person shooters that came after it. And even now, the feel of these weapons in the original Doom still beats a lot of games that came after it. There's like a weight to them, like a satisfaction of actually using them that make. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Doom is actually my second favorite video game of all time after Silent Hill 2, and there's a reason that it still holds up. It is just so much fun to play. Like I said, it doesn't bother with stuff like
plot.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we spoke about Half-Life being kind of like one of the first real cinematic explorations of kind of like the first-person shooter genre, but Doom, like I say, is kind of like distilled down to the bare basics. I mean, even the 2016 version didn't have that much story up front. I mean, it did have kind of like a narrative that you followed, but
thing is, it's got a base narrative, does the remake, but like at the start of it, there's all this plot exposition at the start through a computer monitor, and he just rips it off the wall
Yeah.
and throws it aside.
Yeah.
That's
he
what
just-
that was my favorite thing was like Doom Guy takes so many steps to avoid plot
Yeah.
and just get to shooting shit.
because he's aware that as the player, that's all we're after. We just want to shoot demons. And that's basically what the original Doom and Doom 2 did so well, is just having this pure, frenetic, bloodthirsty action.
And frenetic is a really good word. It is just
Why, thank you.
relentless. You just kind of like run around just like shooting everything, and everything's coming at you, and it is just frantic all the time. It has its moments of kind of like spooky sections, like long dark corridors and stuff like that, but it excels when there's a lot of enemies. Like I say, you've got a lot of guns, and you've just got to get through them.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, the guns do feel really weighty, and the sound of them are particularly satisfying. Even just your bare fists when it comes down to having no bullets and you're just like punching imps in the face,
Yeah.
it has a real meaty feel to it. I mean, obviously, that's the kind of situation you don't want to be in, because I don't know about you guys, but if you try and fight with your fists, you ain't going to get far, because unless you're playing on easy, the game is pretty tough.
Or
You're
if
going
you
to
have
make
the
sure you've got a
Berserk pack.
stock of ammo. Unless you've got Berserk, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and actually, it's funny too, because just talking about the guns have weight, and I will give Doom that credit, because like last month we covered Marathon,
Yeah.
and I
Big
think
shooters.
overall, I might like Marathon more as a personal opinion, but the guns do not have the impact, and I didn't really remember that as a problem until I went and played a couple levels of Doom again to refresh my memory,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that is a
that's-
huge difference.
That's kind of all down to the animations and the sound design. Those two aspects have to be spot on to really convey that kind of weight to the weapon. And Marathon, the gun sounded a bit thin.
Yeah. So what was your favourite weapon?
The shotgun,
Yeah.
definitely. It's just the most iconic weapon in Doom. When you
It's
think
so
of...
versatile, and it's even a little bit overpowered, I'd say, because it seems like even when you're firing at a distance, it doesn't really make that much difference. You
It
can
doesn't.
still hit enemies pretty easily.
It is just one of the most fun weapons to use, and there's a reason that in like most of the art, Doom Guy is holding a shotgun in like
Yeah.
pretty much all the art, because it'd know that it is
The key weapon.
The key weapon. I mean, Doom 2 brought in the super shotgun, which everyone seems to love. I still prefer the original shotgun,
Yeah,
because
me too.
I mean, it's faster for a start, and like I said, it is still powerful.
I think the super shotgun is quite useful for particularly stronger enemies,
Like
where
biggies.
you need to take them down quickly, and that double shot really helps. But I think for most enemies, the regular shotgun is the way forward.
Yeah, I mean, the way to play Doom, you know, it's not like a lot of modern shooters where you kind of like duck in and out of cover. Basically, what you want to be doing, if you've got like a lot of enemies, you just want to be strafing around them and just keep firing off shot after shot after shot. And
Yeah.
the shotgun for that has the speed versus the damage, like a really nice ratio there, where even late game, it is still a weapon that you keep going back to.
Yeah, I mean, it never really gets, improved upon. You've got stuff like the plasma gun, which is quite useful for stronger enemies. But all in all, you're pretty much going to be using the shotgun from the moment you pick it up to when you finish the game, to be honest. It's
Yeah, pretty
useful
much.
pretty much all the way through.
Which is something you can't say for a lot of other shooters. Although, to be fair, I mean, Doom's pistol doesn't get a lot of use, so you could say about that. But a lot of times, if you get a stronger weapon, that's the one that you stick with until you get something stronger, and then on and on and on. But the way that the kind of enemies are there are different ways to deal with each enemy. And
Well, the thing is, you've got the pistol, but really the chain gun is just the improved pistol because it uses the same ammunition. So really you could say that, okay, you don't use a pistol, which you get at the start, but you've got the chain gun, which is basically the improved pistol, which is useful for when swarms of imps appear, like in groups. it's quite good for taking care of those. So I'd say that, yeah, you're not using the pistol, but it's not like you're not using that ammunition. You're still using that weapon in a way.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing that kind of like helps to keep those weapons relevant is that even though you do keep getting like more and more stronger enemies, they still have the lower level enemies there as well that you still need to deal with. So you still get a lot of use out of those earlier weapons.
Oh, yeah. And I'd say that the game kind of benefits from that because killing those weaker enemies is so much fun that, you know, if you were just facing loads of these stronger enemies, it probably won't feel as satisfying because either they overwhelm you and you die, or you don't have as many and it's not as fun. So I think having a good amount of those weaker enemies kind of helps make the game feel a little bit more satisfying.
Yeah, and one of the most satisfying things to pull off in the game, if you can get kind of like 3 or 4 soldiers lined up perfectly, you can take them out with one shotgun shot. And it is just so much fun to do.
Yeah.
I feel like we all just got that visual in our head too as you're saying it.
Well, I think the most satisfying thing to do is when you've got groups of enemies and you make them fire at each other, and then they start their own little war to try and kill each other.
Then you just hide around a corner and just wait for them to sort it out.
Yeah, because I think there's... it could be in Doom 2 I'm thinking of, but there's an area with loads of barons of hell, and there's a cyber demon, and the cyber demon shooting, it shoots the barons of hell, and all these barons of hell just start bombarding this cyber demon, and it's just such an amazing sight because you don't even do anything, you just watch them all fight. And I can't think of any other game from that era that did anything like that. So it's quite impressive they managed to do that.
There were a lot of innovations with Doom at the time, and like I said, they built off the success of Wolfenstein 3D, which is a similar kind of game, but
shit.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of separate strafe buttons really kills Wolfenstein 3D. But they really upped their game with Doom.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I won't really go into the technical details here, but Doom isn't really a 3D game. There's an entire video you can watch on YouTube about how Doom is actually a top-down 2D shooter, and technically, even though it looks like a 3D game, it works like a top-down 2D shooter. You're not seeing a 3D rendered environment, you're seeing 2D sprites that you get closer and further away from.
What? That just blows my mind. I can't even visualize that.
The tech, what was it called? Raycasting?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Basically, what it does is when you're at a certain position in the quote-unquote room, is the game scans where your location on what would be an X and Y, and then it renders the screen you're looking at, and it's doing this who knows how many times a second. And every time you move, and one of those scans catches that you move, and it quickly basically scans out a whole new row of pixels at an insanely high speed, and that's why it runs so smoothly. So, yeah, basically every time you take one step, it refreshes the entire screen on you to give the illusion of movement.
That's mental.
No, yeah, the YouTube video, and I can't remember who did it, he goes into really good detail, and it's really amazing.
I'll have to have a look for that. It sort of reminds me of, like they used to do in racing games, where instead of actually moving through the environment, you're just in one location and the screen's changing to look like you're moving and driving. Sort of reminds me of that.
Yeah, and it's the reason that Doom levels are kind of like flat. I mean, you've got ups and downs, but nothing can be above.
That's true, because you can activate switches as long as you're kind of on the right vertical plane of it, it doesn't matter if it's above or below you, as long as you're in line with it, then it's fine. You can still press it.
And that's why you can shoot people who are way above you even without having to look up or down.
Yeah.
But like what I mean is you've got like a series of corridors in the game.
I know what you mean.
And
there's no upstairs or anything, it's just you've got some stair areas, but it's mostly flat.
Yeah, you can't have a corridor on top of another corridor. And that's because it's a 2D top-down shooter. You can't have one thing on top of another thing. Like I said, there is an excellent YouTube video on that if you want to check that out.
Was that only in Doom, or did they continue in Doom 2 as well?
Yeah, Doom 2 used the exact same engine.
Right.
Quake was id's first game that actually did a 3D environment.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like Quake definitely had upstairs because you had like the elevators and stuff that go up. So they definitely had rooms mapped on top of others. And I want to say Duke Nukem 3D had as well.
Yeah, Duke Nukem 3D was a 3D rendered game, I do believe.
Yeah, I'm just remembering some upstairs areas and seeing if there's a thing directly underneath or not.
That
I
used a
think-
2.5D engine, actually. I did a lot of map building for both Doom and Duke 3D, and it was still the sector. Everything was sector-based, and you couldn't really have overlapping sectors. And when two sectors were visible and they were overlapping, that would kind of cause the engine to throw a loop.
All right, so Duke was sort of the same as well.
Yeah. The only thing Duke had that Doom didn't have was sloped surfaces. That took some extra coding.
Oh yeah, it did have
Wizardry.
slopes in it. Yeah, yeah, because obviously when you use the map function, I'm just thinking that you see this rather linear top-down 2D map, and you never see things overlapping. Well, in those two games at least. Quite interesting. I never knew that.
But yeah, speaking of map creation, that takes us on to one of the other really interesting things about Doom is that they allowed the community to make their own maps and mods, and it was super easy to do so. There was a lot of software that was released that allowed people to make their own maps, and it essentially just made the replayability of the game almost infinite.
As we discussed in Half-Life, Half-Life was the same situation as well. I don't think it was as easy to make for, but again, the devs just released those tools out for people to use, and
There's-
people just jumped on it.
Yeah, there's still people making Doom mods today. I think Half-Life's kind of tapered out, but if you guys have seen any of the latest Doom mods, they've been able to inject full 3D models into the engine, like
Yeah, I
real-time
think-
lighting and everything. It's wild.
I think the last one I saw was a Castlevania one, which I shared with the other guys.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where there's actually a whip in it and everything, and you're going through effectively Castlevania 1, but in a Doom engine,
Yep.
and it's really quite similar.
John Romero is actually about to release a whole new 5th episode for the game, which
Just
which is-
about to. Well,
When
maybe.
it's done.
it's been delayed. It should have been out by this point.
Yeah, he's delayed it. I don't know if I told you guys, but I think it's been delayed now till April. The physical version's delayed till April, isn't that right, John?
Yeah, I got the notice from Limited Run Games. We'll see what John Romero ends up doing.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be maybe April at least, possibly the summer, possibly next year.
Yeah, we'll see.
When it's
Hopefully
done.
not too late. Yeah, exactly.
But he
I
could
mean-
very well release it digitally before then.
I think he will. Yeah, the fact that he's releasing it for free is really cool. It's just
Yeah.
neat to have I still have my original boxes from like Wolfenstein and Doom, and I thought it'd be really cool to add Sigil to that collection.
Yeah, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, because you've got the physical version, haven't you? You pick that up. It does look pretty neat.
Yeah, I think I posted pictures of my original Doom 1.6 floppies that I had a while back.
Nice. I used to have some of the big boxes from some of the older PC games. Like, I used to have Half-Life and all the expansions. And I used to have all the big boxes for those. And I was quite pleased with those. But obviously things change, time goes on, and don't have them anymore. Still
Yeah.
got the CDs, but I don't have the boxes, which is a shame.
Yeah, me too. I had the Ultimate Doom box, and God knows where the box has gone, but I do still have the CD.
They were big, though, those boxes.
Yeah.
Like, you used to look inside, and it used to have a tiny little game inside, and you think, why are the boxes so big?
It's good that we now have like DVD style cases, but it was kind of like a spectacle. It was something special when you got a big box for a game. But
Yeah.
with the way that a lot of modern collections are now, I would not have the room for as many games as I do if they were all in that kind of big box.
Yeah, definitely. You'd need, like, an entire room dedicated to just PC games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And a big room.
that being said, I really miss the walking into game stores and just having the wall of those
Those big boxes.
boxes. Yeah. Those were
Yeah,
the
I
days.
remember going into, like, game stations, seeing those boxes there. Oh,
Yeah,
good
we had
times.
Comp USA in the States.
And now all you see when you go into game stores is mobile phones.
Oh gosh.
Soon
And
you
little
would.
cards for games.
At the time of release of this podcast, maybe game stores don't even exist anymore. Perhaps. I mean, GameStop in America is not doing too well at the moment.
They are not.
And I can't imagine Game over here is in particularly good shape either, for like pretty much the same reasons.
It's owned by the same company as GameStop.
But yeah, going back to Doom.
We haven't mentioned one of the most important things about Doom, which is the BFG.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the BFG 9000.
Yeah.
which was a pretty good gun.
It was a room clear. It was, if I am correct, you could get it really early.
Yeah, I think you can get it. You can definitely get it in episode 1. I just can't remember what level.
There's a secret level or there's a secret door you can pop open, and you can get it super duper early.
I know there's like loads of places you can get the BFG.
Yeah, we haven't really touched on all the secret places that they hid throughout the maps too.
Which is lots of, but that was just sort of like
everywhere.
its thing.
Oh yeah, Wolfenstein had the push walls.
Yeah, they had all the push walls, which apparently was a whole programming debacle.
Right, John Carmack fought it for a very long time apparently.
Yeah, but it's great because it's one of those things where you complete a level and you're just like, okay, this is how many secrets you got.
Right.
Try again, try and get 100%. Because some of them are pretty clever.
Yeah, Doom evolved from trying to be an arcade-style game. I remember Wolfenstein began the same way, where you used to have a little score in the bottom hood portion, and it would reach you based on that, and then they cut that down into par times for each level and percentages you cleared and that sort of thing.
Did any of you guys ever clear the par times? Because sometimes I'd beat a level and I'd be like, how am I nowhere even close to this? It's ridiculous.
Only the first level of Doom 2.
Honestly, it's something that I've never really paid attention to.
Well,
I only look at it and then laugh. I mean, it was the same with like Duke Nukem 3D as well. You just get the par times and you just think, are you having a laugh?
Well, some of those par times, it's like if you want to, like the secret to Doom and Wolfenstein 3D to getting some of those is you have to skip almost every single enemy. You just have to grab the gun, shoot whatever's actually going to actively stop you from running, and then you just run.
Yeah.
It's really rough.
In the very first level, if you're speedrunning that, which you can do in kind of like, 30 seconds, you only really have to kill the imp in the second to last room, because that's the only one that's like really in your way. And other than that, you can just ignore everything and just zoom through it.
Yeah, speaking of clearing things quickly, that's kind of the intention with Nightmare Mode. Don't know if you ever tried Nightmare Mode, but if you kill enemies, they quickly come back. So you sort of have to speedrun the game on the hardest difficulty. And it's ridiculous. I think I beat the first 2 levels on Nightmare Mode back on the 360 like years ago. And then I was just like, okay, no more.
The enemies move faster as well, and the fireballs are faster.
Yeah.
If you find that kind of thing fun, then great, but I don't.
There are people out there that speedrun Doom on Nightmare difficulty, and you just think, how? How can you do this?
Well,
it's not only difficult, but it's unfair.
In the Doom reboot, I believe they changed up Nightmare
to make it a bit more doable.
Kind of. It's the same difficulty as Ultraviolent, but when you die, you have to start the game over from the very beginning.
All right, so it's pretty much what Alien vs. Predator 2010 did. Just make it the same difficulty as hard mode, but you've got to do it in one setting.
Yeah, you cannot die, or else you have to start from level 1, which is rough.
Yeah, roguelike.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was looking for, was roguelike.
Yeah, that's crazy. I need to spend more time with the newest incarnation, and I saw a video of the sequel to that they're going to release.
Oh, Doom Eternal.
Yeah, it looks so good.
They've not actually released that much information. Say it's out this year. They announced it, released a bit of footage, and it's kind of been quiet on that front for a while.
I'm expecting
wondering
Christmas
when
time.
they release it. Well, I'm kind of hoping before Christmas time. I was hoping for like maybe summertime or October at the least. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying, John?
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I spent a lot more time with the original Doom games outside of the new ones. It's definitely, if no one else put this game on the list, I would have put it on there. And that goes for a lot of these too.
Yeah, Doom is a great game. One thing that I happen to remember, Matt, you didn't mention what platforms Doom is available for.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
The answer is all of them.
Yeah, it might be better to tell you what it's
Say
not
what it's
out for.
not.
It was obviously released on PC first, and it was just so popular that it was just ported to every single system you can think of. Even stuff like the Spectrum had. I mean, I don't think there was an official release or proposed release for the Spectrum, but people have got it running, like,
Yeah.
and looking all right for the Spectrum on like the home computers and stuff like that. And like I say, it was just on everything. It's on the SNES, which is a terrible version. Um, it's on PlayStation, Saturn. It's
There's
been
an N64 version, but that's like a complete new game.
I mean, didn't people get it running on graphing calculators?
Yeah, I've
People
heard stories about it
barely.
being like
Yeah.
on fridges and stuff.
Well, I was about to say because like the whole thing became like originally it was like, oh, I have a computer, but can it run Crysis? And then people started putting Doom on everything. Is like, well, can it run Doom?
I've got a
And-
what can it run Doom?
They've gotten Doom running on an oscilloscope, and it is the craziest thing to watch.
Yeah.
But they've done it. I mean, they've done iPods, not even like smartwatches as we know now, but like old schools type smartwatches.
Yeah.
It basically, the thing is, if it has a screen and some sort of processor, they're probably going to get Doom running on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think itplaysdoom.com. I don't know if that's still around. Anything from refrigerators to, down to the oscilloscopes. It's wild.
That's insane.
I think the most obscure port that I've seen so far is the Game Boy Advance version, as far as one that like does justice to the original game and isn't just this slideshow
Mess.
of an experience. Yeah. And the PlayStation version has some interesting background too, because someone else did the soundtrack for it. It had
Yes.
utilized the CD audio, and it also added some things with the colored lighting and shading that they couldn't do previously. 'Cause
That's
that
true
version
because
was
the
specifically
Saturn
intended.
version does the same. Because they redid the soundtrack, and I think there are some other changes. It's a bit of a weird port. Is the console one? I can't comment fully on the PlayStation version, but I believe that the PS1 and the Saturn version are pretty much identical, apart from frame rate, of course, because the Saturn one is notorious for being a little bit chuggy. But what happens is they've mixed Doom and Doom 2 together, but it's actually missing some levels. But then they've got like a load of new levels included as well. So there's some levels that I've never even played before, and they're exclusive to the PlayStation and Saturn versions. And the game just plays like all the way through. It's not like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Doom 2, 1, 2, whatever. It just all plays continuously, one level after another, until you're at the end. Which basically means like all your weapons and health and stuff like that continues, even between episodes, which, can be a blessing, can be a curse, depending on, the state you're in by the end of the level.
Right.
But it's
Well,
quite cool.
I was just saying, there was the, if I remember correctly, there's the Atari Jaguar version, which is actually apparently one of the smoother running, but it didn't have music?
No, the Jaguar had a newly commissioned soundtrack, I do believe.
Jaguar was missing something.
It had the soundtrack, it just didn't have the game. You just had to listen to the music.
But
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they commissioned a soundtrack and weren't able to use it or something.
Yeah,
because when it came to console releases, apparently the Jaguar was one of the better releases on one of the worst consoles ever made.
Hey, the
Yeah, don't let
Jaguar's
Jeff
not
hear you.
too bad.
Yeah, don't let Jeff hear you say that. He'll come after you.
Oh, the Jaguar, bless
Yeah.
it. It tried. It tried hard.
Apparently, it came with one of those key overlays too,
Yeah, because it had a 10 key on it for some reason.
in case you wanted
What?
to dial your phone while you're.
Yeah, no, it had a well, the Jaguar had an ABC button, a D-pad. Did it have triggers? I don't remember if it had triggers on it.
I don't think it did. The mess of a system.
It's been the last time I touched one. I think I was 12, so it's
And you've
been a
never been the
decade.
same since.
Yeah, right.
There is a re-release version with triggers on it, but the original one does not.
Okay, yeah, but then it has just a big fat numpad right in the middle.
Yeah. That looks super uncomfortable to actually hold.
It's not comfortable at all to hold. But Tempest 2000 is a fun game.
Yep, which you can also play on other consoles, which
Yeah, I know.
aren't as shit.
Right. But yeah, no, all this talk of music, all the music was for Doom was originally its original compositions, but it's all very similar to very popular
Kind of metal
rock and
music.
metal of the time.
Yeah. And it was really good as well.
Oh god, it's
I mean-
so good.
Because I played the Saturn port for the podcast, which is a great port. Don't let anyone, slate it, because it's okay. But the music, I miss the music from the original game. I mean, stuff like, Episode 1, Mission 1, which is obviously the big famous one, is just so damn good that you miss it when it's gone.
Yeah, all of the music throughout the game is just top notch.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It gets you wanting to shoot stuff.
I mean, I've got the original soundtrack in my iTunes library and 2 full remixes of the soundtrack as well, and they're all fantastic.
So which episode is your favourite then, Matt?
The first one, purely because it's the one that I am most familiar with. I know that episode like the back of my hand. I've completed the game through like several times, most recently last year. But that one, because I didn't have the full game to start with, I only had the shareware version. I only had the first episode. So I just played that over and over and over. And it just has like the most nostalgia for me. And I mean, it's not, replaying this game isn't about nostalgia. It is still a super fun experience. But having that familiarity with those levels, it's almost kind of like muscle memory, what you need to do, so you can focus on the fun bits of actually shooting the enemies and like getting through the level.
Yeah. For me, it's all about episode 4. Like, episode 1's probably my second favourite. As you say, I'm quite familiar with it. And I love episode 3 because of how it looks, but I find that the levels are a bit maze-like. But yeah, episode 4, I think, like, really brutal, but really well designed. I mean, like, the first 2 levels are notorious for being, like, extremely difficult, especially, like, in the PC version, where you have to start with just a pistol, but it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, like the second level of the episode has a cyber demon in it. It's it just is super, super brutal.
Is it the second episode? Because the second episode's inside, and it's quite cramped.
Did I say second episode? I mean second level.
No, I mean the second level of episode 4.
You go
I
out
don't think that
into
Because it's all inside. There's a lava pit, and then you're running across these, like, little platforms.
yeah, it is level 2. Right on the other side of those platforms. Once you've cleared all the little bits around the edge and
Oh, yeah, you're right. One appears.
yeah, off to,
Because I was
the
knocking
left
down
side.
the top one. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I think my favorite episode from Doom was Chex Quest, because that's what I played. That's the version of Doom that I played when I was a kid.
What the hell is Chex Quest?
Chex Quest was the first video game. Do you know about this, John?
I still have the CD.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I wish I still had mine. It was a total conversion of Ultimate Doom, but it was actually only the first 5 levels, so basically the first episode.
What the hell? I've just Googled it, and there's like some kind of waffle on the
Oh,
front.
that's something special. It's a Chex.
He's a Chex.
Quest.
He's a
Come
Chex
on.
cereal. And they basically took the story, they did a total conversion, completely reset the entire visuals of the game. I think they altered a couple of the levels slightly, but
Well,
overall it's almost exactly the same.
Just reskinned.
It's mostly, just completely reskinned.
That's amazing.
From
And,
what I remember, it was you start out in like a spaceport, and then you go
Yeah.
to like a lab, and it's completely new graphics, as you said. The real big Doom tell is that all the weapons are like, it's like, this is kind of a shotgun, but we're not going to call it a shotgun.
Yeah.
And it's really
Well,
fun.
they were called. They were
Yeah,
called
there's something which is clearly the BFG.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not.
because like your basic Zorcher was just a spoon,
Amazing.
and
Yeah.
that was supposed to be the pistol, and then you were talking about the chain gun. Later, you could get the electric sport.
Yes. I replaced the
Oh.
chainsaw.
Yeah, it was a really wacky game,
Amazing.
but it was essentially Doom.
The same.
But I went back and played it again as best as I could because there's not really a whole lot of ROMs around for it. Not ROMs, ISOs, I guess. floating around the internet for Chex Quest, but there was a texture pack. You could download Ultimate Doom and then
And just
apply a
apply that.
texture mod
And
to
then-
it, and it plays through.
Well, I mean,
but then
that's all
once you
they
get-
did.
Yeah, but then once you get essentially, but then once you get past level 5, it doesn't have like the ending cinematic and stuff. It just goes to the next one, and all the textures go really wacky because it just assigns textures where it's supposed to be. They weren't tailored for the levels. So you still have all the enemies moving around mostly as they're supposed to, but not all of them are caught. And I basically shit myself when a Cacao demon jumped out of the
Came
wall.
out of nowhere.
So that was fun. But yeah, they still do occasionally. You'll still see. I think was it Games Done Quick
Yes.
just this year covered Chex Quest.
I watched that. That was great. And I'll have to hook you guys up. Apparently, there were 2 other episodes that were created for Chex Quest that never got released because the whole project got canned after the first one because those companies don't like money. But they were released available online for everybody.
Oh, really?
All right.
Yeah. And they work as long as you have the original WAD file for it.
Ah, nice.
You think you can hook me up with that?
Yeah, hit me up
The whole
after.
thing?
Oh,
Hooking
yeah.
up with that
Absolutely.
sweet Chex Quest.
Yeah, I got the Chex Quest if you got the bowl spoon. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, there were so many. Yeah, if anybody played Hexen and Heretic, those were 2 games that were expanded on the engine too. Those were really good.
Yeah,
I
I've
used it for
actually
days
got.
on-
I think it's Hex. Yeah, it's Hexen. I've got that on my Saturn ready to play because I've never actually played Hexen before.
It's really
So-
good.
I'm looking forward to playing it.
I used to have a big box copy of Heretic, the first one. God knows where that's gone. I don't even have the CD anymore.
Yeah, I still have the CDs for those. Yeah, Hexen was interesting because it was the first one of those games to introduce class-based gameplay. So you'd have like 4 weapons per character. Heretic
Yeah,
was
so
more
you
of a
got, like,
straightforward
the-
of a 1 through 10
Yeah.
guns available, or crossbows and stuff.
But yeah, those classic shooters were all pretty good, but Doom is definitely the granddaddy because, you can see where they got their inspiration from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm with you, Adam, with that 4th episode. That's it. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, and it was I think it was a paid-for update if you had the original Doom, because I remember noting that they like fixed some stuff, but also they're like, oh, there's more levels, and
Yeah.
I was just all over that as a kid. It was good times.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping that episode 5 kind of lives up to the reputation of the other episodes. Because apparently it's all going to be in-engine, so it's going to be like a proper episode 5.
Yeah,
Well, I
using the
guess-
original limitations of the engine too, not the Z-Doom reincarnations. He's calling it a megawatt, but I think it's only like 15 levels. Typically, megawatts replace all 30,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
I guess we'll find out in 2022.
Whenever it comes out. 22 maybe.
Shots fired.
Yeah. Speaking of other conversion things and doing things out of engine, I think one final thing to touch upon is Brutal Doom, which is like a fan-made project that was done to effectively take Doom and, crank it up to 100. Because it just makes it super gory, it takes the weapons and makes it ultra-violent. It includes like a load of extra animations and stuff, again, to increase the violence and the brutality of what's already quite a brutal game. Makes it more difficult and just makes everything really extreme. Has anyone ever played Brutal Doom?
If you guys thought the original Doom weapons had weight, this just takes it up to 11 and then cranks it
Oh,
even
yeah.
farther.
Yeah, what is it? The machine gun in Brutal Doom just tears through shit. It is super visceral. I've only played like a few levels. It's a bit too difficult for me, but I love the idea of it, and it's beautiful to actually look at.
I think the team have gone on to making like other brutal things, haven't they?
When I was Googling Chex Quest just a minute ago, there appears to be a brutal Chex Quest.
Yes, there is.
Brutal checks.
I'm Googling that.
Yeah, it started a whole slew of just brutal mods. I know Quake got one.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
about
there's
that.
just so many.
That's amazing. Oh yeah, Brutal Checks Quest. There we go. Huh. Interesting. Right, so I think we all agree that Doom is classic and deservingly so.
Yep, like I said, my second favorite game of all time.
Nice one. And yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't rank it in my top 10 games, but it's definitely, one of the games that I can play again and again and still really enjoy. So it probably won't be too far off.
I'm still playing Doom to this day, especially with all the mods out there.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, there are thousands upon thousands of fan-made levels and that.
And they're still going.
You'll never get through them all.
Yeah, I'll have to host a server sometime if you guys want to play too. You
Yeah,
need
that'd
to
be cool.
get in some
Yeah.
frags.
And personally as well, I think Doom is better than Doom 2. A lot of
Yes.
people have a lot of Doom 2 love, but for me, I think Doom 2 gets a bit maze-like, and a lot of the times you can get a bit lost. And some of the new enemy types are a bit annoying, shall we say.
I
So
agree.
personally, I find that the original Doom is a much better experience, to be honest.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Doom 2 also pack in multiplayer original Doom, like or co-op original Doom, or was that a mod?
I know there is cooperative available for it. I remember it being on the 360. I'm not sure if it's available on the others. Oh, actually, co-op is available on the Sega Saturn version. I mean, it probably plays like shit because the single player runs at like 5 frames per second, but it's available.
Oh yeah, talking split screen.
Yeah,
But the co-op's been a staple of those games. And actually, the first Doom had an interesting mode where you could get 2 client computers, and they would render out a right side and a left side, and they would all connect to the middle machine, and you could have a widescreen configuration, kind of like the
wow.
Ifinity. Yeah, it's really
Nice.
neat. The engine has a lot. John Carmack was basically just messing around at that point, and it's just neat to see what he was experimenting with.
it's a real shame what's happened with John Carmack and Romero. 'Cause I mean, like, Romero's mostly doing mobile games these days, and Carmack's put all his effort into VR, which doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. So it kind of seems that their talents are sort of being wasted at the moment.
Yeah, we'll see. Time
But
will
at least
tell.
we're getting Doom Episode 5,
Yeah.
so that's something. But I mean, the real question is, when are we getting Daikatana 2?
Now.
Right, so Stephen, Ryan, did you like Doom?
Oh yeah, I mean it's iconic, proper iconic, not Ubisoft iconic for a reason. Like,
But I have a hat.
there's a reason where people are still talking about it as much as they are, all these years later.
Well, and look, it's still getting mods. It's still getting. I mean, it's getting a new episode for crying out loud. It's one of those
Yeah.
games that has stood the test of time.
And it's so
And-
iconic that they can reboot the series, and like everyone's buying it still, and
Yeah.
everyone still cares about it.
Yeah,
Well, unlike in Doom, they throw in the little secrets that have like the old little pieces of old Doom levels
Yeah,
I
and
love
graphics.
those.
They
Yeah.
throw those in there specifically because they know their audience and they know how famous the game is.
Yeah,
even people that didn't experience the original Doom, I think the game's reputation would mean that people are still interested in like new Doom.
What
Oh,
Doom,
yeah.
what Doom 2016 did is similar to what they did in Mario Odyssey, where they had like the little 2D sections.
Yeah,
yeah,
Or the
and
Mario
and
64.
They throw those in there because they have the game has this insane legacy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I had maybe played like 10 minutes of original Doom before I played Doom 2016. So, like, it still holds up even for someone coming at it from a relative inexperience.
Yeah, you can jump in Doom now. If you've never played the original Doom, you can jump in and play it now and thoroughly enjoy the game. And you can't really say that about a Wolfenstein 3D. I don't think Wolfenstein 3D is garbage. I think it hasn't aged well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
you
the
can-
only problem with Doom is if you're not playing it with mods to get mouse look support. I think if you're playing it in the original format, it probably would be a bit iffy. I think you
It's
would need WASD and mouse support.
But those
Yeah,
mods are
the-
like so easy to get and download.
Oh yeah,
It
definitely.
takes seconds.
But I mean,
Yeah.
if you are playing it in true original mode, I think then it would suffer a little bit.
The setup for the original game was you could either do it just pure keyboard, if you guys remember that, with the arrow keys and holding Alt to strafe.
Yeah.
And you could also add the mouse support and add joystick support as well, of all things.
Oh god, joysticks were so popular in the 90s.
Yes, they were.
I think the version on GOG automatically has WASD and maybe even mouse look, because I don't
Makes
remember.
sense.
I don't remember having to fiddle with options or anything for that.
Yeah, it probably does.
Yeah, a lot of people miss that it was a separate setup program to set up all that stuff. It wasn't all things in the menu. You had to run setup.exe from your DOS command prompt. It was great.
Oh, yeah, well, that's
Proper
what it
old
is then.
school.
I do not miss DOS.
Yeah.
I do.
Right, well, I think we've talked enough about Doom and sang its praises for enough time. So I think it's time to move on to our next pick. And I think we'll have Stephen next. So we'll take a little bit of a break, have a bit of a musical interlude, and we'll come back with Stephen's choice.
My pick for this month was Halo 2. This is actually the first-person shooter I had played, and I even played this one before the first game. This game's always been kind of special for me because of that. It's probably my favorite of the Halo series. If not, then it's second to Reach. But it's Halo. Like, if you know about video games from the past decade, you know about Halo. It was one of the biggest titles for the original Xbox. I think it might have been the best-selling title for the original Xbox.
Quite possibly. I know it got a kick-ass translucent blue edition, or transparent blue.
The best-selling first-generation Xbox game. Yeah. 6.3 million copies.
Probably helped as well that the original Xbox didn't have any other games on it.
It had 1.5 million pre-orders as well, which was a record at the time.
Yeah.
Don't be that mean to the original brick of an Xbox. It did have Forza Motorsports, which kicked off a now extremely popular racing sim.
Yeah. Halo 2 is really the one that launched Xbox Live. I mean, the networking systems together was the big thing for the original Halo. I'm pretty sure it was Halo 2 that really kicked off the live service.
It did, and that's when, it was massively popular just to be able to log on and shoot up a whole bunch of strangers. That's not the right thing to say, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, I was still playing Halo 2 on Xbox Live when I was in college in, 2008. So
Well, yeah, it was very big for multiplayer because not only did it have deathmatch, but you could also do the entire game cooperatively too.
Yes, I was actually gonna bring up the cooperative aspect because I've actually gone through the whole series co-op, and it is a really fun time.
Much better. Yeah.
I actually just did that in prep for this podcast. I did it through the anniversary edition, but I made sure to play it with the old graphics, which was quite a treat.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that feature that you can just switch back and forth at will.
I don't like what they did with the anniversary, or not the anniversary, but the updated graphics.
Really?
I feel like it strayed too far from what the original art was going for. And if you look at it, it's little things. Just one of the levels when you're on the Covenant planet, there's even some of the orientation of buildings. I forget, the Ark ship that's facing you is actually tilted to the side a little bit in the updated graphics, and it ruins the symmetry of that background and even just the color scheme and everything. I just wasn't a fan. It just didn't do it for me. I like the new music, but I didn't really notice the difference between playing the old graphics and the new one, audio-wise.
Interesting.
I know in the Halo Anniversary Collection for the Combat Evolved, the new graphics actually caused a problem because some of the textures they put over actually screwed up some of the collision.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that being a thing.
And, there were a couple levels where it's I need to switch to old graphics just because it's throwing the Warthog around and shit.
Ah, interesting.
I don't know if they do that for the Master Chief Collection, if they avoided that problem.
I can't imagine they didn't at least try to resolve it. They may not have been able to, but I imagine they at least tried.
Yeah, I think they tossed out the collision models for the new graphics and just used the old graphics, because we can do that nowadays, to use that as the geometry for the old as the collision geometry, which is wild to think about because it's however many polys that new stuff was made of versus something that was on the system 4 generations ago now.
Oof.
Yeah,
I'm
good
just having a
times,
look at the difference, and it does kind of look pretty, does the anniversary one, but I'm kind of with John. I think I prefer the look of the classic one. Just like some things just don't look quite right.
I also didn't like what they did with the video. They were gorgeous. I just didn't like how they changed the characters because I was used to like Sarge looking a certain way, and then they chose some other actor to actually model him. It was kind of weird.
Well, now I haven't played the Halo Anniversary Collection at all for Halo 2. I did play a little bit for Halo 3, but they like completely revamped Halo 2.
Yeah.
And for Halo 3, all they did was basically go with 60 FPS.
Yeah.
Now,
right, the full 1080, 60
did they in Halo 2? Did they redo all of the animations and everything, or were they still like the old kind of janky animation, just like general model motion?
That's a good question because I remember the animation for the original game was locked to 30 because that's, or the animation frames were locked to 30 frames for a motion versus just because that was the frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I didn't notice any difference. Everything seemed very smooth. It was actually really weird having played like the standard def or even like the Xbox doing some 720 magic and then going to Xbox One and everything just like everything's very crisp. It's kind of like when Halo first came to PC. I didn't get a chance to play that awful Vista port. I heard that's not great, but it holds up too. Just everything looks great. That you don't really need the updated graphics.
Mm-hmm. The original graphics still look fine. Like, you know, it's just, I guess, for people who wanted the super fancy stuff. But I mean, it still looks fine. Like, you know, it was fine then and it's fine now.
Right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I played on the original Xbox and I had no problems with the graphics whatsoever. I didn't even know that there was like an updated version with the anniversary.
No, I didn't either until you'd mentioned it.
Yeah, the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, I have the Master Chief Collection, and that's the version of it that I played most recently for this.
Looks cool. Just having a look at like loads of different screenshots about it, and it does look pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Halo 2 did a lot of improvements. Some of them were improvements, some of them weren't over Halo.
Yeah.
Well,
it introduced a lot
of
of stuff. Let's put it that way. It introduced a lot of stuff from its predecessor.
Yeah, and some good, some bad.
As you would hope, like a sequel would do. Like it introduced dual wielding.
Yeah, the dual wielding.
Which was like a big thing.
Yeah, which was a big thing because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it updated a lot of the multiplayer maps, like Blood Gulch got upgraded. They didn't call it Blood Gulch in Halo 2, did they?
I don't remember. But being able to play as elites, because they added that whole bit with the Arbiter.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like the main thing that, I consider as a big change between the first and the second. They added the Arbiter character, which you played as for more or less half the game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they split the campaign down the middle where you're kind of popping back and forth between here's the Arbiter doing his stuff, and then here's Chiefy Chief over here doing his stuff.
Yeah.
And what did you think of the Arbiter stuff?
I actually liked it. Like, I know the Halo series has gotten a lot of crap for its story. I actually don't mind it. I think a lot of times the story is well done. I think they can get into shenanigans, but I think overall it's pretty good.
I only got up to the part where you start playing as the Arbiter, so I haven't actually played as him, but I've done everything up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, the Arbiter stuff, honestly, apart from when you've got an energy sword, I don't really find them particularly fun. And whenever I play those levels, I just kind of think, I hope these levels are done soon so I can get back to playing Master Chief.
I think for me, the reason I like them is because it shows you a lot more about the Covenant.
It gives you some more backstory.
Yeah, and I like getting all that background information.
Because the Arbiter's story, his half of the story is fine. It is a little bit of a turnoff, though, because the Covenant weaponry doesn't feel as good.
Yeah.
Like I said, you get the energy sword, and then there's like dual-wielding needlers, and anything else feels kind of bad.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's fine if you're using combos. Like, I find that the alien one that's like a pistol, which charges up.
Yeah, because that bus shields out immediately.
Yeah, I find that comboing that with the human pistol is just an excellent combination because you just take off the shield, headshot, dead.
Yeah, well, isn't the plasma pistol and the assault rifle, isn't that called the noob combo for Halo?
Yeah, the SMG.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's because you pop the shield and then just rip them up and move on to the next guy.
Yeah, works, huh?
Yeah.
What difficulty did you guys all play on?
I played on easy because I'm terrible at video games.
I have, let's see, I've beaten the game on heroic co-op. This time through, I don't remember what I did, but yeah, I mean, I've played it on all four basically.
Right.
Yeah, I played it through on. I've beaten every Halo game on Legendary apart from the first one, and that's only because I've played like maybe an hour of Halo 1 and just can't stand it.
Yeah.
I've,
But this time I just played on normal.
Halo 2 I played on normal. I've gone through all the other ones, or at least taken a crack at all the other ones on Legendary and beaten them on at least heroic.
yeah. I remember
Yeah,
when
I've
they
done Legendary single and co-op on all of them apart from, I think maybe Halo 4. I didn't manage to beat it solo on Legendary. I think towards the end I had a bit of difficulty on one of the levels and then just
Yeah.
stopped.
I got
Yeah, I remember-
screwed on Reach. There was one level. There's one level in Reach that still hasn't been beaten on Legendary because at the very last minute, you have to let the Pelican get away, or I think it's you have to let him set the bomb or something like that, and you have to fight off a whole bunch of elites, and it keeps auto saving right before I die.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
jeez.
So whenever I load back in, like one of them, I got auto saved, like it checkpointed as an elite was lunging at me with a sword.
Oh, jeez.
And another time it auto saved as a whole pile of power cells were exploding right behind me. So it
Oh,
would
that
load
is-
me back in and I'd instantly die.
That's the problem with
And-
autosaves.
And I
Ridiculous.
just gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's
don't blame you.
infuriating. I'm glad you mentioned the elites and the legendary because for the review, because I've definitely, when the game came out, the thing to do and the bragging rights to your friends was, I beat the latest Halo on Legendary. And I remember doing that all in co-op too, because in Legendary, when you're playing co-op, and this was introduced in 2 because everybody was complaining the first game was too hard. If you died, you restarted the level from the beginning.
Yeah.
There wasn't any checkpoints. I played the first level, this playthrough, on Legendary with a close friend of mine, and we had trouble even getting through the first couple of encounters after you get through the first them breaking through the door to the point where I was like, we're playing the rest of this on normal so I can actually see the story in a reasonable amount of time. Yeah, but that also gave you an idea of what the game designers intended for what normal to be, what most people would experience. And the game was still really hard. Towards the end, we were having trouble clearing, again, another library level. When they introduced the flood, you're just like, I know exactly.
The never-ending swarm of flood.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
just thought
that's
that
one
was
of my
interesting,
major
yeah.
gripes with the series is the flood. I never find the flood fun, whether it's the annoying tiny enemies or the big creatures. I just
Yeah.
find them very irritating to fight.
Well, and it's almost like they put him in there just to introduce a horror aspect, and all you get kind of is like a repulsive aspect, and then you just get mad because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they took him in the right direction from the first game. I was definitely expecting something a little different because they were just kind of that. Oh yeah, these guys are here, and as opposed to having them be, something of their own. They're just there to be obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing of it is them being this big looming threat, but we never actually see, we never see them be more than that annoyance.
Right. Well, towards the end, they do add a little bit of that because they're crashing ships into where you're going, and then the flood come out and they kind of mess up everyone's day, which is neat. But that doesn't happen until the second to last level, or the third to last level. Which again, the story flow of Halo 2. The story is interesting. I love how they take the Halo universe very seriously, but the way it translated to gameplay wasn't perfect. And of course, that the cliffhanger ending that everybody loves. It just. But yeah, the whole first incarnation of Xbox Live was a big deal, and the fact that you could they added downloadable content. I remember that was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we haven't really touched on multiplayer yet.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons I picked it, is not only for my personal history with the game, but also because, like Doom and Half-Life that we've discussed, it was one of those that kind of had a large effect on the genre and video games in general.
Yeah, because they sort of added the whole regenerating health kind of mechanic So they moved away from health packs, and instead you had the shield that regenerates, which
Right, you have the
became like a big thing after
Yeah, that was it.
yeah. Although I find the way Halo does it better than Call
like
of Duty's
yeah.
straight up regenerating health. Like
because
where
it's a
you get
regenerated shield, and you've got your
Yeah.
health, which does
Because it
go
makes
down.
sense.
Yeah, it's like Call of Duty. I'm getting shot to shit, but it doesn't matter. I'll sit behind this crate for a while, and I'm good to go.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think they do it a lot better in the Halo series.
Right. Yeah, the first game had the shields and then the health, and they got rid of that entirely for Halo 2. It's a lot of very interesting design choices as to like where they were going to bring the Halo series from both a story and a functional standpoint. They definitely, yeah, as you said, invented or were kind of defining the genre and how they wanted to take their game.
Another thing that Halo 2 added, which I was quite fond of, were the skulls. Like, I don't know if you found any of the skulls. I mean, the actual uses of the skulls were varied. Some of them were kind of fun. Some of them were, like, really annoying. But I
Some of them
found the
just
whole
made the
process
game
of, but I found the
stupid
process
hard.
of finding them quite good. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed the experience of trying to track down the skulls and obtaining them.
Yeah.
Like, I really like unlockables in games for, like, quirky shit. You know, I'm a big fan of, like, how they do it in, you know, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. But
Did you guys get the Scarab gun during any of your guys' playthrough?
No.
No.
Oh, wow.
I think I have done in the past, but
Yeah.
I didn't do this time.
I have trouble playing through the first Mombasa level without going up outside of the level. And you have to do that to get, there's a sword that's hidden and you get an achievement from that. And also that's where the blind skull is. And then halfway through, I guess right after you cross the bridge, the banshees that attack you, when you leave just one left and you kind of kite, I guess kite is a word. You just kind of keep its interest to come at you, and you navigate it. You have the AI drive because you can't pilot it. The moment you pilot it, it tries to throw you through the world and it kills you immediately. You take it up to a loading zone up until the point where it's about to open up into the next area, and you can then hijack the Banshee, and from there you can fly up to this big towering building that's got it almost looks like a bridge, but it's got it looks like an H in the sky. On top of that is a plasma rifle that instead of shooting the plasma rifle shots, shoots the Scarab gun.
Scarab shots.
Oh
yeah,
wow.
Scarab shots. It's great. It's a lot of fun. There's like a hidden basketball in that level too. It's
Yeah,
it's a
the
whole bunch of
football, I
little
remember
physics
that.
stuff. Yeah. Or yeah, soccer ball, sorry.
Bungie really liked to stash stuff out of sight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell they just had fun making that game.
Well, that kind of links me to something else as well, talking about the Scarab. I think for me, the most memorable part of the game is probably the Scarab level, where the Scarab's, going around and you've got to climb it and take it down. I think that's probably like the big highlight of the game for me. And probably like the big crescendo. And then after that, the game just kind of fizzles.
Yeah, I mean that is a very big moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
I mean,
really
to be
that
honest,
is-
I find it the only kind of memorable moment in the game. Like, I find the levels to be functionally fun. I think the mechanics of the game are enjoyable. But, like, the levels, you ask me about any of the levels, and I'd struggle to recount most of them, apart from that one, because the others just kind of exist.
For me, Gravemind was a huge moment. Like all of a sudden you get this big thing that says, "Hey, you two play nice or else."
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. A very odd moment because I wasn't quite expecting the series to go there with it, but it makes a lot of sense. I like when what is it? The tentacles bring up one of the oracles, and it also brings up one of the what are the alien religious characters
Prophets.
called? Yeah, the prophets. He's got a prophets, and when he pulls the guy away after him making his speech, he has this like hilarious scream as he goes off the screen from that, and I just couldn't help but laugh.
One thing that the levels do actually need, in my opinion, is maps. Because, especially, I found it most egregious in the very first level, when he's still on the ship. Is it a ship or a base?
I think it's a station.
A station. And you're running around, and I've got Cortana saying, "I have the bomb here, where are you?" And it's like, I have no idea where you are. I have no idea how to get to you. And I was kind of like running around everywhere, trying to find where I needed to be. And it took me a very, very long time to do. I mean, I think all of the levels after that could have done with a map for the most part, but that one was the one where I thought there is no way of knowing where I need to go to get to the next bit of the level.
And I will say I did have that exact experience the first time I played it as well. I was just really, really easy to get lost in that level.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if I had a similar experience. Because when I played Halo 2 for the first time, it was actually in cooperative with my flatmate at the time. So, we were kind of two people looking for where to go and what to do. So I never remember it being a problem. But I think that's because I was playing it in cooperative. And then obviously in further playthroughs, I kind of knew where to go and what to do. So I can't really comment on that specifically, but I can sort of see where you're coming from.
I remember the levels being very busy. And we had mentioned it before. A lot of the levels that I played, I found myself saying, like, I know I played these, but I don't remember anything about them because I feel like all the alien levels, they're alien levels, and that's what they are. Not you're going through the Ark or you're going through a holy world of whatever for the Covenant. It's just
another alien
you're
world.
in a city, you're in a thing. It wasn't as memorable as the first game because I remember like the control room and everything. I could draw out those maps probably, but Halo 2, it's like maybe 1 or 2 levels, and even then I don't know where I am half the time.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I didn't really have that problem so much with Halo 2. If I had one beef with Halo 2, it's that it was take 30 steps, and now you have to. There was too many times where it was like you take 30 steps, and now you have to fight a whole bunch of aliens to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then run ahead. It's like, oh no, another wave of Covenants coming in. Wait for us to, unlock the door. Where there, then we'll have a team drop in when we're done. It wasn't fluid at all. For a lot of it. Like in Halo, even though it had, way too much flood and too many identical corridors, especially near the end when you were on the Halo installation itself and you could get lost and backtrack easily, you could just sort of keep going most of the time. And Halo 2 started putting okay, now we're going to make you fight in this section and you have to fight everybody off.
Yeah, a lot of the encounters
or you could get out of the map and skip huge swaths of the game.
Not on purpose either.
Yeah, and in Halo 3 kind of fixed that a little bit where it's you can sit and fight, or you can just keep moving.
Yeah.
For a lot of these big fights, there were your final sections where it's you have to kill everybody here so we can activate the cutscene, but you couldn't move along in a lot of those areas.
The first game's encounters were kind of interesting, or not encounters, but the level design was interesting because they did reuse a lot of the geometry from. It kind of came full circle where the first map was the last map. You went through the same corridor, so kind of you had that in the back of your mind where you're going or where you've been and that sort of thing. So I think that was a time saving thing with the level design, but it actually helped benefit the game. Whereas again, Halo 2, all the encounters ended up being somewhat predictable. And they give you kind of the gist of what you're doing, and it's whether or not you get a weapon cache in between each. The thing.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing you could say about basically the entire series is that they all have their positives and negatives. I don't think any of them is a perfect game by any means.
Halo Reach is a perfect game.
I was about to say.
I mean,
I'm not sure it's perfect. I mean,
Reach
with
is probably
Reach,
the closest.
Yeah,
Adam,
Reach is the closest.
There's the door.
No, the thing is, Halo Reach is my favorite Halo game, and it's probably the only Halo game that I would say is a great game. The others, I would say are good, but Halo Reach, I would say is great. My only beef is that if you ask me to name any of those characters, I couldn't tell you the names of any of them because they all just kind of meld together. The game itself is fantastic, but the one flaw it has is that the characters are just kind of there and they exist, then they die. And
George is amazing.
Well, one thing that struck me about Halo 2 is that the NPCs, they do have character. I found the game actually quite funny. And in the interactions between the characters, one particular thing that stood out for me near the start of the game, Cortana comes up and says, "You look nice." And both the chief and the captain say, "Thanks." Yeah. And then they give each other this look. I found that really funny. And they've just each got personalities, and just the way that they interact with each other is quite memorable, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, like, Cortana is actually a pretty good companion. I did always enjoy Cortana in the games.
I loved what they did with the cutscenes and the dialogue. One of my favorite, if we had to pick a favorite, like in that cinematic portion, there's a scene. Basically, Sarge is the best. He comes riding in one of the monitors into screen, which I thought was really funny. And the pose that they used to have him do that was perfect. He was like cradling the thing. It was great.
Yeah, Sarge is pretty cool.
Well, and you talk about funny dialogue, and I think I don't remember where you find it, but the "I would have been your daddy" skull.
Yeah, I would have been your daddy, but a dog beat me over the fence or something, I think is the full title.
Activates a whole bunch of ridiculous dialogue.
Yeah.
That's
Another
great.
funny bit from a cutscene I found, I think Sarge is talking, and some guy leans over him and is clearly, like, whispering something into his ear. But I think they forgot to animate his mouth. So it just looks like he's sniffing his neck.
Nothing seedy at all.
Better love story than Twilight.
Oh, yeah.
The cutscenes do a lot to kind of like give the world a bit more flavor.
Yeah, and I would say that in this game in particular, they did a good job of explaining what was going on. Because, like I said, I played this before I played the original Halo, and I was still able to follow the story because the original Halo didn't have that complicated of a story, and they summarized it well.
Yeah, that's true. You don't
you
really
can-
need to have played the first one.
You can start it up and get the gist of what's going on.
Yeah, we found a thing, we blew up the thing.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Way to ruin it for everybody. You know what? The game is old enough now. There's no spoilers.
Or if there are spoilers, we don't care.
The parrot is the murderer.
Another interesting thing is, you know how some games kind of like tell story through gameplay and kind of like give a bit of history of the world through gameplay? You can tell just through playing the game that in the 26th century, it is super easy to get a driving license. Because, goddamn, those, if you're not driving the vehicle, then you are in for a bad time. I mean, there was one particular section, you know, when you're going over the bridge and you're clearing out everything on the bridge. I was riding a Ghost and I was just firing everything down. I got near the end of the bridge and, you know, you've got the guys following you in the Jeep. And one of the guys in the Jeep says, "Hey, good to see you, Chief," and then crashes into me, destroys my Ghost, and I'm like, really? So I just went around the other side of the Jeep, I got in the driving seat, and I was just like, get out, you
Let me
knob.
drive.
Yeah.
But man, they're all excellent shots on the turret.
Oh, they are. I found the best thing to do was just you drive the truck and just drive them near the enemies, and they'll just massacre them.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing to do is to play co-op and have a human in the turret.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, like, I know when me and my brother were playing, whenever the opportunity dropped for 2 warthogs on the screen, and that happened a lot in Halo 2, we would both take the wheel of a warthog and let the computer, because they're pinpoint accurate.
Yep.
Yeah.
They won't prioritize targets. They just shoot whatever's closest,
Which is usually good enough.
which is usually good enough. But yeah, when you're just cruising through the battlefield, yeah, two NPCs on the turret really can clear a field.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember on a technical level, just having AI drive a vehicle was a big deal, especially one that you could be in. I remember being blown away by that because at the time they were still pioneering console FPSs, and just that you didn't really see that in FPSs of that magnitude, no matter how their age was as drivers. But the fact that they could do that was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'd call that driving. I think they were just flailing at the steering wheel.
Well, they
it
had
doesn't help-
waypoints and
I would
things.
say it also doesn't help that the frickin' warthog is apparently made out of Nerf. Because, like, that's the one thing it's true in Halo 2, it was true in Halo, and as far as I know, it was true in Halo 5 as well, is they forgot what gravity was like when they developed the games.
Yeah, super floaty.
because
Yeah.
they spin around and they just take forever to hit the ground again, and that really sucks for those famous, race the explosion levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got a lot of junk in the trunk. That's it.
Too many balloons. They got the old man from Up in there.
Maybe it's too much helium, because if you activate the Grump birthday party skull,
Oh, I
they
love
all
that skull.
explode in confetti when you headshot,
Yes.
and you get a little cheer.
Yay!
That is by far my favorite skull in Halo.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
They
always a
say
joy.
they say it doesn't help, but it does help because you know when you have confirmed headshots from across the map.
And
Yeah.
also it makes you want to go for headshots
Mm-hmm.
because you
Well-
like getting the confetti and the little cheer.
Well, and for me, like, my favorite weapon is the DMR. So, that just plays into my playstyle, having
Yeah.
the way to get the headshots there.
Right.
Nice one. So what's the general consensus then for Halo 2?
I feel that Halo 2 was a worthy, not perfect, but a worthy sequel.
It's definitely better than the first one, so
Yeah.
as a sequel it's definitely upped to the game quite a fair bit.
Personally, I found the gunplay and navigation quite annoying. It was okay, but honestly, Halo isn't really my kind of thing. I wasn't really super heavy into the first one either. And it had its fun moments, but the most fun moments I found were when I was like on the Ghost and shooting loads of stuff down. Just running around shooting enemies, I just didn't find it that fun.
And that's fair. I mean, if it's not your thing, then it's not your thing.
Yeah.
I find the gameplay to be quite enjoyable. Like, I found the central mechanics of the game to be quite fun. I'd say my gripe was mainly to do with, the story's like there, but I'm not too fussed about that. But I find the levels in the second one to be quite unmemorable. And it's fun if you're playing cooperative, but if you're playing single player, it's okay. I'd say like the game's good, but I don't consider it to be great or anything.
Yeah, it was it was an interesting entry for the single player portion of the Halo universe, but it definitely defined the genre for the multiplayer portion, which I think is the takeaway from this. I feel better having experienced the Halo 2 story, but the multiplayer was where it was at. So
Yeah, I mean, and I often rail against Call of Duty for, making multiplayer such a big deal and, basically pushing the game industry in that direction. And it's, kind of unfair of me because Halo was a big contributor of that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But like I said, this is one of those games that I love. It was one of my earliest games on the system. It's just one of those games for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I
yeah,
kind of
feel
get
the
that.
same way.
I suppose it's kind of like me and Zool, because, Zool was the first video game I ever played, so I do have a soft spot for it, even though I'm fully aware that it's not great. So I think you will have always that, kind of sentimental attachment to certain games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll say it's not a bad game. I consider it a good game, just it doesn't blow me out of the water or anything. Okay, so we'll move on to our next game now, and we'll move on to my pick. So again, we'll have another musical interlude, and I'll see you after the break. Okay, so my pick for this month is The Operative, No One Lives Forever, or NOLF as it's affectionately known as. Anyway, it's a stealth-focused first-person shooter, and it was developed by Monolith and published by Fox for the PC I suppose it was back in 2000. Also got ported to the PS2 as well, which I'm not sure if that happened in the same year or later, but, it did get a console release. If Monolith rings a bell, they were responsible for... What were they responsible for, John? They did AVP 2, and they did something else as well that was quite big, and I don't remember it.
Yeah, they did a lot of PC shooters.
Yeah, definitely. I know that the big one for me is AVP2 as a big like Alien fan.
Some of those games worked off the same engine that No One Lives Forever worked on. Oh, they did Blood. That's why I know them.
Blood, yes,
Yeah.
they did. Yeah, so they've done a bunch of like quite famous stuff, especially in the shooter genre. And No One Lives Forever was like another big one, and it kind of has a very cult following. So anyway, it's a spy game, and it follows Kate Archer. She's a spy working for an organization called Unity, and they track down like some kind of megalomaniac with an eye patch who I forget the name of, but he works for Harm, and you've basically got to stop them from taking over the world. It's quite a typical James Bond style story, and there are acronyms all over the place.
What did HARM stand for? I remember that being a joke in the single player or the story.
Oh, I don't remember.
It's okay. Yeah, I remember them they were constantly asking what harm stood for. I think that was a running joke through some of the story.
Yeah, it was. I'm not sure if it was ever mentioned.
It probably wasn't.
Right, it says, according to loose documents that you find, HARM was supposed to stand for Hair Alternative Replacement Membership. However, since another entity disapproved its use, then the meaning of HARM remains debatable.
There you go.
So yeah, it never gets mentioned, although they mention what it used to stand for.
Yeah, that's such a good example of what this game was, though. I'll let you elaborate on that more, Adam.
Yeah, definitely, because it does have a reputation for having like a lot of humor, and it is silly, but it's never like just completely ridiculous because it embraces it. I mean, like with the James Bond film, it kind of takes the silliness quite seriously and establishes its own little world. So like there are times when it's knowingly silly, with the characters just kind of rolling with it and treating it like normal. Like as you were saying with, HARM, it's treated with such a ridiculousness because it's an acronym and they don't know what it stands for. Or you've got like a sequence early on in the game where the villain, he kills like your colleague. And one of the henchmen says, "Why didn't you kill the girl?" And he's just like, well, you can do that. And it's just treated like a non-thing. And it points out how ridiculous it is, but then it just kind of continues the flow with it. And it's got a really nice charm to it because of that. And when you're playing through the game, I say it's a spy thing as well, so you visit various different locations. And you've got such a wide variety of locations. Like you start in Morocco, but you go to like Germany and Switzerland. You go on planes, you go on submarines. It really kind of goes full force with the game. So not only is the world quite compelling, but you can tell that Monolith wanted to go all out with it, and they just basically include like the kitchen sink, because you've got all these different locations, you've got tons of gadgets, tons of weapons, and this game just has everything. So yeah, that's a brief overview of it. Before we go into some kind of details about some of the levels, what do you guys think of it?
Well, I played up to about halfway through the game, and honestly, I had fun with it. I had slight issues, kind of like the same as I had in Halo 2. It could have done with a map. But overall, I found it fun to go through. You mentioned right at the start that it involves a lot of stealth. Yeah, I pretty much blew my cover like in the first few seconds of every level that you had to do stealth in. And I ended up having to listen to that siren for extended periods of time. One thing I would have liked is the ability to see my mission briefing mid-level, which I didn't work out a way to actually do that, because sometimes you're not sure what you need to do to progress.
What do you mean, like objectives or just
Yes.
the overall briefing?
Objectives.
You can actually see those. I can't remember what one it is, but you can do it.
Yeah, I think you just press O if you're playing on PC.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Oh.
I think it is one of the letter keys.
Oh.
Yeah,
Did you guys play on PC versus PS2? Because I personally sought out the PS2 version.
I think Steve got
Different.
the PS2 one.
Yeah, I
I
played the
played
PS2
PC.
version.
Yeah,
Okay.
I played PC too.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to see how our reviews would differ from that. I did a little bit of the PC version. I do know on the PS2 version, if you press the select button, it will pull up a menu that you can see what your current objective is. But the game desperately needed a map. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it goes for the whole GoldenEye and Perfect Dark kind of attitude of you've got a big open area that feels like a real location, and then a bunch of objectives, which, you know, some happen as you're playing the level and some get given to you before. And I like that style of gameplay, but having a map would definitely have been helpful.
But I did find it quite a charming game, though. It is really funny in places. I mean, like in the first full level that you play, as soon as you go in, there's one of the enemies talking to a guy, and the guy's trying to sell him his monkey. And if you listen to the entire conversation, it's really, really funny. And like right at the end of that level, you go to like another area, and this guy is still trying to sell his monkey to someone else this time. It's really, really funny, and a lot of the dialogue throughout the game I found was of a similar kind of level of humor.
Did anybody shoot the monkey?
I did not.
No.
I'm not a monster.
I'm not a fan of simian violence.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. It's like unacceptable levels of simian casualties, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly
and you
it.
fail the mission. They fail you if you shoot the monkey.
That's great. No, I didn't even think to try that.
Yeah, it's the little things in that game that really sell it. I had a lot of fun with it. There are some technical limitations, but a lot of that was just because of the time and the fact that I was playing with the controller on the console. The game just fits in this awesome space in between James Bond and Austin Powers.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, with this kick-ass female role, which was really cool. It's just it's nice to see something different. I mean, this was I guess after Perfect Dark was out, maybe a little bit.
I think it's about the same time because Perfect Dark was 2000 and this was 2000. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it hadn't really been established that way. So I like how it's kind of its own thing. Yeah, and I haven't really played any of the other ones, but this was a blast. I do want to try the others out. / spend a lot more time exploring this game because a lot of it was trying to get through the other games for this podcast. And you always hate when there's one that you just want to keep going back to. But yeah, I just loved how everything was so perfect and very serious, yet not serious at the same time. You can tell the developers had a lot of fun with this one.
I also really enjoyed the atmosphere and just the overall appearance of the game because it was very it didn't take itself seriously, but at the same time it played it off.
Yeah, like in the very first level, which I despise. I'll get this right out here. You start with the sniping section, and it goes on for way too long, and I really hate that bit. That's probably the worst part of the game for me.
I do like the guy you're protecting.
But yeah, it's funny. It's just like, oh, I've dropped my coin again.
There must be a hole in my pocket.
But the funny thing is, like, John mentioned this to me because I've completely forgotten about it because I don't read the mission briefings anymore. But you read the mission briefing and you're designed to protect him. And it says the guy's short-sighted and deaf, so he won't be of any help to you. Which is just amazing because obviously these guys are just running out trying to kill him. And he's not reacting
right up to him, and he's completely oblivious to what's going on. I did have a few, when it came to the technical side of the game, I was having a lot of beef with it, and it kind of ended up ruining it for me because I was enjoying the atmosphere so much.
What do you mean, with regards to stealth, or...?
The stealth was really iffy. I like what they tried to do with the whole, like, different surfaces have different levels of stepping, and then you need to crouch and move slowly, and that's quieter. Yeah. That was a very good idea, but it did not execute well, especially because if you're playing on PC, you can't toggle crouch. You have to hold it.
Yeah.
So if you're holding C for crouch, you can't hit WASD properly because one of your fingers has been pulled away, so your mobility gets cut down.
That's true.
And that's really, really awkward, and you end up accidentally dropping, and you don't have to move very much to suddenly alert someone if you're on, like, tile or something like that.
Well, one of the key things that the game tries to do is utilize the gadgets. And the gadgets are really good for stealth, and they really help you. The problem is, like, a handful of them are really good and really useful, and the rest are just useless and are just no use whatsoever. Like, there's a perfume bottle which stuns enemies if you spray it in the face, but if you're getting up close to them and spraying in the face, which only temporarily stuns them, you might as well just shoot them in the face.
Yeah.
So, it makes it completely... I mean, there's no situation where that would be good. There's also like a robot dog, which is used as a distraction for dogs. There's one dog in the game. So again, it's kind of like something which they just put in there and never really use properly. And
Well, I think that
I feel
goes
like
back-
one of the problems is they tried to cram too much stuff in. And I think that the game probably would have benefited from just a little bit of cutting things back and just making it a bit more of a tighter experience.
Well, I think a lot of that goes down to what we were saying earlier about how they were having fun making the game.
Yeah,
and
they
they
just
were just trying to implement more.
Yeah, that's true.
The other problem I had with the game, I found out pretty quickly, was that other than the very first section with the sniping, damage is not consistent.
Oh, yeah.
It's not consistent at all, and that's damage going out and damage going or being received, so I suppose that's fair enough. But like in the beginning, every single sniper takes one shot and then he goes down.
Yeah.
Once you actually move into the rest of the mission, it's usually one shot with the carbine. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
Your silenced pistol, like there's like a couple different tones of guys. There's the guys that, like in the very first level where I was having the most problem because there's a ton of them. There's dudes in white suits and there's dudes in blue suits. And it seemed at first that the dudes in blue suits have like some sort of body armor and they take like an extra shot or two potentially. That's what it was feeling like. I don't think it has anything to do with that because one dude, I shot him once with the silenced pistol. He went down and he was wearing a blue suit. And the dude after him was in a white suit and they normally take 1 to 2 and he took 5 to the chest before he went down. And I would also notice on my health and body armor, a guy would walk up and they'd shoot me and I'd do a tiny little chip, and then I'd get shot twice and half my health is gone. I don't know if there's headshot crits in the game. It's not really precise enough with like, your pistols.
I think there are headshot crits because I know that getting like headshots with your pistol usually kills. So I think it does take that into consideration. But I see where you're coming from. I know that sometimes you can't rely on
notice what was
this
cool
many.
though. I did notice, and I thought this was really, really neat. I shot a dude up in the legs, and he went down, but he kept shooting at me.
Yeah. That's
And I really appreciated that because there's a lot of games that have done that, but they're like the more serious, like your tactical simulators, if you call them like Delta Force and whatnot, who take into account limb hits like Delta Force did. If you get shot in the arm, you can't wield a rifle. You can only wield a pistol. You get shot, you shoot a dude in the leg, he'll go down, but he'll keep shooting at you and he'll try to scoot away.
Yeah.
And then seeing a game that's honestly as goofy as this do that, it was like odd but appreciative thinking there. Just because it's just a little thing that they added in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, you could tell they were committed to putting out a good product here. Like, for example, on the PS2 version, you're targeting snaps to the enemy, so you don't have to be as precise with the stick because they were still figuring out analog stick aiming at that point.
Right.
So
and I kind of wish I kind of wish I had gotten the PS2 version, or I wish I had been able to at least get my Xbox controller working with the game.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't accept the joypad, and like when I did hook up a joypad in the settings, and it just wouldn't recognize it at all.
Yeah, well, I'm hooked up my 8-bit door, and it did recognize that, but it played really wonky, and I was like, okay, just mouse and keyboard is. Yeah. One thing as well, while you're talking about the damage, it just reminded me the game has a very unique system for you taking damage, because you have like a set amount of health, but then you've got like body armor. Your health, when that goes down, it doesn't restore. There's no health packs or anything like that. Even when you move on to the next level, it will still retain that same health damage. the only way to restore is getting body armors and restoring that part. It's only when you're on a brand new mission that your health restores. And it's sort of a more realistic approach. It makes it definitely a lot more stressful, because I think, Matt, you said you had a problem with the Germany level where your health was just at a really bad state.
Yeah, I had 2 save games, and both of them had me at really low health, really low body armor, and as soon as I was loading in, I was dying within a few seconds, so I ended up having to restart the entire mission just because I'd saved at the wrong point, which is kind of my fault. But again, I do wish there were like health packs in the game, and I do wish that they would regenerate at the end of each level, because if you barely scrape by in a level and you manage to finish it but only with a little bit of health, then you've kind of screwed yourself.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like the system. However, I kind of wish that in between levels it restored your health.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a little bit unfair. But
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, it would be nice to have first aid stations like you have in Half-Life. They're like all over the place, and it'd be nice to have something like that just to top you off a little bit, even if they do have a limited amount of uses like the ones in Half-Life do.
yeah.
Well, and that was another thing that irritated me in the game, and I don't know, because I didn't do a whole lot of PC gaming around this time. Honestly, I still don't. But Half-Life does the same thing, or rather, this does the same thing that Half-Life does. Well, Half-Life came first, where you select your weapon, and then you select your weapon.
Oh yeah.
So you have to cycle through to your inventory what you want to use, and then you have to pull it out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And that was really irritating me in both of the games. Because it's just slow, and when you're in the middle of a fight and you're trying to do something on the fly,
Yeah, it does not.
it's not even remotely on the fly.
Yeah, I kind of get that. I mean, for me, it's not a problem because I got the original Half-Life when it first came out, and I played the shit out of it for like years. So that kind of system is sort of ingrained into like my consciousness. But I can see how if you didn't grow up with that, that's quite an irritating mechanic. A bit like tank controls, I suppose, because you didn't grow up with tank controls, and obviously when we come to those survival horror games, you have a problem with tank controls.
Yeah,
so I think it's just one of those things. Yeah.
But you can get around that by using the number keys to select your weapons.
Right.
I did end up doing that, was mapping weapons to the hot swap, because there's a menu in there in the settings to do that.
It does seem weird that you can go back to like Doom, where if you're using a mouse, you can use the scroll wheel to just go between your weapons, and you don't have to like then select your weapon. It feels weird that that was a feature there, and then several years later, it still wasn't implemented in something like this.
Yeah.
And when I mapped my gun selection, I went to the things. It's like first and next was mapped to like bracket or something like that, something odd on the keyboard. And I mapped. I'm like, well, no, it's going to be scroll wheel up and down. And then I'm using it, and it's just cycling my little menu bar on the side and not bringing up my weapon. And that's when I immediately started having a bad time because my world didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I recall in a lot of these old games, looking at the defaults and then just questioning what the developers were thinking when they assigned those. A lot of games have that problem.
Well, yeah, and think about this. This was in 2000, and No One Lives Forever default keyboard settings are set up like default keyboard settings for Doom, where you can use the arrow keys and WASD and not a mouse.
Oh, right.
And when I'm flipping through that and looking, I'm like, who wouldn't use a mouse?
Yeah.
At this point.
But I suppose if they have the option there. But yeah, it's weird. Like, default settings are just very strange. Sometimes you look at them and you think, what? Yeah, I had to go into the default controls and just remap everything because whoever did it didn't have a clue.
But other than mechanically, the game is very humorous and enjoyable for a light romp. I laughed pretty heartily when a dude ran around the corner. What did he say? Oh, I can't remember what he says. don't be reprehensive of this reprehension.
Or something stupid like that.
Yeah, something really dumb, or like one day, like you shoot and he runs away. He goes, "I'm not really fond of bullets."
Yeah, I remember that one.
Basically, I really like the aesthetic of it. I really like the humor in it. And I think they did well. The levels can be a bit hit and miss. Like, as I say, you start off with the sniping bit, which I'm not fond of, but then the Moroccan level is quite cool. Then you've got the Germany level, which is a bit of a pain, but then you've got the plane level, which is just awesome. Like, especially when you're falling from the plane and just shooting everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to aim at the stuff that's coming at you in that level, but I do
It's
like
cool.
the concept. They pretty much recycled it in Saints Row 3. The
Yeah,
opening level of Saints Row 3 is like a plane drop, which is like a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a really kind of ambitious project, and they just cram so much stuff in. Like, again, just with another feature that didn't even have to be there. In the cutscenes, you have dialogue choices, but they don't actually have any effect in the game. It's just, do you want to be a nice agent, or do you want to be a dick to people? And that's the only reason they implement it. In fact, if you skip the cutscenes, it doesn't like skip the dialogue choices like you'd expect in a game with dialogue choices. It skips over them. The game knows that they're completely pointless, but they included them anyway. And it's touches like that which I kind of think, the developers really enjoyed making this game and they wanted to put everything in, for better or worse. But yeah, it's a game that I like quite a lot and it has a special place in my heart. It's not one of my favourite games. In fact, I would say that from this list, I would probably prefer Doom and Half-Life and possibly even Time Splitters more than this game. But yeah, it's still a game that I like quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that probably went into them trying to put so much in was not knowing how it was going to be received. So they didn't know if they were going to get a sequel to add more features.
Yeah.
Just kind of went with the gusto.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think it's actually a pretty good game. I wasn't sure what to expect based on, the game's presentation, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like I thought it was a, pretty enjoyable game, and I'll definitely go back and check out, the stuff I didn't get to.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the game's far from perfect. It does have its issues, but I think as an experience, it's definitely something that I would recommend to people because it's just so unique. It's so funny. And the game's got a lot of charm. The second one does too, and I think I prefer the first one to the second one because the second one does have some faults, even though the second one feels tighter. But the series is, pretty good on a whole. I mean, they're pretty good games. It's a shame it has all the problems it has with the rights.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the situation with the rights at the moment?
I'm trying to think if you told us or if I found it online somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's familiar with the status of the rights, to be honest.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's that one company owns the...
I can't remember what it is. I think it's like, was it Fox that got acquired by Activision Blizzard? It was Activision acquired like the company or whoever, or the developers maybe. And people just assumed Activision would have it. And they just went, well, we looked in a drawer where all the rights are kept. Can't find anything, so I don't think it's us. And then Monolith were like, oh, it's not us. We don't have anything. And so nobody knows where the rights are. And so it's just in a period where really it's a free-for-all because nobody has the rights for it.
Yeah.
And nobody can do anything with any of it. So these games will never be remade, re-released. We'll never get a new entry. So all that's left is for people just to, either get the PS2 version or, go to my abandonware and get the PC version that way. Effectively pirate it because there's nothing you can do. So
is
just
it
download
really
it.
pirating if it's unbuyable? I mean, and nobody owns the right to it?
Well, that's the thing.
question.
That's the only way to acquire it, really.
It's really rotten that these companies don't know who owns what, but they'll certainly throw lawyers at it and shut down any projects to do that. I
Yes.
actually found not a company. Wow, I found a website of a group of guys that is dedicated to keeping the game alive, and it's actually available free online.
Yeah.
They just basically deal with it, sort of thing. Just kind of a big old FU to the developers, not developers, the rights holders at this point, whoever they are.
Whoever they may be.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what they should have done is like the company should have gone, well, we've looked, we don't have the rights. So from our perspective, it's someone else's problem. And then if both of them had gone like that, then it'd be like, okay, well, whatever. Anybody
Public
can make
domain.
a sequel. Anybody who wants to.
Well, I know there's been a couple companies or a couple groups who have been trying to acquire the rights, but it's such a legal cloud of like just nonsense about how to get the rights of something that isn't owned by anybody anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
really,
it's like the game's already become public domain, but you can't actually do anything with it.
Yeah, that gray area. Yeah,
And-
there's a NOLF-revival.tk. They distribute the game, and they
Yeah.
add support for Windows 10 and all of that too. So they're very much keeping the game alive rather than just releasing the files as is. So
yeah.
you can
That's
tell
where
there's
I got
passion
mine.
behind it. Yeah.
Well, and I think the secret is just for people to mod it to high heaven, because that's how you get the remaster or even a sequel.
Yeah,
is
just mods.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the game supports 4K apparently with
Oh,
all the
wow.
patches and everything, which is wild.
Yeah, it's a shame that nothing can ever be done with it in the future.
Yet.
I mean,
Yeah.
I say, like, if it was just one company, they could have just let anybody deal with it. Like, I mean, if you look at the Wonder Boy series, like, Sega didn't really want to do anything with it, and people just like, can we do stuff? Yeah. And then we got a Wonder Boy remake, and then Monster Boy, and Sega's just like, yeah, do whatever. Fine by us. But, hey-ho. Right, so what do you think then overall? Personally, I think it's a pretty good game. Not perfect, but pretty enjoyable and definitely worthwhile as an experience.
I'd say the same thing. I enjoyed my time with it. I was frustrated in a few bits, but overall, it was a fun game. The gunplay was nice. I liked the way the weapons felt. I mean, I used the silence pistol for most of it, and I just enjoyed using that and going through it.
think,
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well.
I think if I can get my hands on a PS2 version for pretty cheap, I think I'll enjoy it better because it seems just a little bit more, I'm not going to say optimized, but maybe optimized is the right word.
I mean, maybe it doesn't run particularly well on Mac, but the version that I downloaded ran perfectly at 1080.
Well, I was running it on my Surface Go, actually. Then I have the lightest weight Surface Go possible because I couldn't get a copy for the Mac. And even if you do, apparently you have to run an emulator to emulate an old Mac operating system so it'll run
Wow.
properly. But yeah, no, it ran fine. It actually ran really fine. I had to crank the effects down a little bit, the graphics down a little bit, but it ran smoothly. It didn't jitter or anything like that. So, and I would hope so for a game that's about to hit 20 years old, we'll be able to run on even the lightest weight of laptops nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is pretty old now, so it should run well on most people's computers.
The PS2 version was really fluid from what I saw. I didn't really run into any slowdowns or anything.
Yeah, I didn't notice any problems with it.
Cool. Right, well, time for another musical interlude, and we'll go into our final pick, which is Ryan's pick. So take a sit back, relax, chill out some music, and we'll see you afterwards.
All right, for this month, for our big ol' FPS hullabaloo, I picked Time Splitters 2, which was a sequel to Time Splitters. Smart name, right? It was developed by Free Radical, who was composed of a lot of people from Rare, I believe, at the time, and this is considered a spiritual successor to the likes of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark.
That's
And
correct.
you can tell.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you can super tell. And essentially, the gist is that there are aliens, and I want to say that don't really give them a name. They're just referred to them as the Time Splitters, but they have time travel technology, and their goal is to destroy the human race by traveling back in time and screwing with time. And you play as Agents Cortez, and I can't remember the other one.
I
doesn't really
believe
matter.
her name is Agent Other Woman.
Yeah. And essentially, you've developed your own time technology. This is more established in the first game. You have access to the time portal, and you have to jump back in. You have to jump into the time portal. It drops you into an era, whether it be the future or the past. I think there's only maybe once it drops you to the future throughout the games.
No, there's a few future locations. I can think of a few in this one. You've got Tokyo.
Well, is Tokyo
the-
is Tokyo like future compared to the
It's
Central
neat.
Hub world?
It's Neo Tokyo.
Well, so it's like future for what we would consider the IRL
Yeah,
timeline.
true. I mean,
but I
don't
don't
know.
think it's future for. It can't be future. It can't be future for the actual game because they're trying
Yeah.
to destroy the past.
Well, the Neo
Possible.
Tokyo level is set in 2019.
I was going to mention that if you guys didn't. It's technically today, right now.
So it's actually modern Tokyo. It's recent Tokyo.
Yeah, current Tokyo. The level is
Yeah.
current Tokyo.
But yes,
yeah,
there's
you would
Tokyo, which is probably past. And then there's the alien one and the robot factory.
Mhm.
And I think those are the future ones.
But you jump in and you assume someone else's identity, and you have to go in and you have to stop the time splitters, retrieve the time crystal, fix what has been messed up, and then usually a side mission is eliminate all evidence that you were there. And that's how they break it up, and they dump you in all sorts of fun locations.
I mean, really, the story's just kind of there. It's more of an excuse just to go to different locations in time periods and do different things.
That's all it is.
And that's
they were like,
basically
we want to make a
It's a
Wild
framing
West game.
device.
We
Yeah.
also want to make a future robot game. Well, we
And hey,
could
let's
do
make
this
a
with
first level that's nicked from GoldenEye.
Yep.
Just so people know that we did that game too.
No, yeah, straight up.
I mean, I do like the narrative explanation of, oh, you're jumping into the body of someone who was there to avoid the potential time travel issues that can come up.
Yeah, definitely. They do it a little bit differently in Time Splitters 3 because in Time Splitters 3 you're always Cortez and you're with the person. So for example, the spy level, you jump into a spy level and you're with the guy rather than taking his body. And I
Oh,
don't
okay.
like that as much.
Mm.
You know, they do some other stuff with the time mechanics because there's paradoxes and meeting yourself, which, you know, is quite cool. But I definitely prefer the Time Splitters 2 approach where you're like body jumping effectively. And you're sort of doing like the shit that they need to do whilst also dealing with the Time Splitters.
Yeah, I
But,
really like that. There's enough story to keep the gameplay plausible, but not enough to get in the way.
Yeah,
It definitely gave you purpose to what you were doing, but not tailored
yeah, definitely.
to go to X, Y, and Z, even though that's what the objectives were.
Normally, we'd start off with a question like, "Oh, what was your favorite part?" I want to just start right at the gate. What was the worst level?
The one where you had to defuse the bombs on the timer. I really, really did not like that level.
Really?
Yeah.
Are we including the final level? Because for me, the final level is just kind of like nothing. It feels like it's just there to, you know, just end the game rather than anything.
I enjoyed that final level.
Well, yeah,
I
they gave
thought-
you the minigun.
I don't think it's bad. It's just kind of there more than anything. But other than that, I think maybe the Planet X one.
Yeah, the first alien level you run into, I had a lot of problems because I was backtracking a bunch. I just got lost.
I think it's easy to get lost, and I find
And I
it
had a
quite
map.
dull. Yeah,
And you had a map.
That's the exact opposite of what we had before.
See, personally, I just absolutely despise Neo Tokyo.
I had fun with that one.
I like
Once you
the
figure it
idea and
out.
I like the concept, but yeah.
That's the only level that I actually had to look up a guide for.
Oh wow.
Like I've played the game through several times, and every time I hit Neo Tokyo, I have trouble. It's not a problem of keeping away from the security cameras. It's making sure you're just the right amount of distance behind the hacker. Because there isn't a very big window between the time that door opens for you to get in between without, alerting her before she can open the door.
Yeah, I always find that whenever I do that level, I fail at least twice before I get it done properly.
Yeah.
And once you get past that, you're home free. The rest of the level is just
shooting people.
Yeah, just shooting people and running down halls and finding stuff.
Yeah, I really like the aesthetic of it though. It reminds me a little bit of Chicago from Perfect Dark.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. That alien encounter on that level was weird. It's like half stuck in that portal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was weird.
But clearly taken straight out of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
The police cars and everything.
Oh, no, yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Well, that's what, because they were able to have fun with the game and then the level design because they're just they can focus on one zone and do whatever they wanted. It's
Right.
very apparent that they were able to go a little bit ridiculous. Like, one of my favorite levels in the game is Chicago.
Yeah, that was
Speaking
fun.
of Chicago. Because
Yeah,
you
the
have,
gangsters.
the whole, the gangsters and the sleuth, and then you bust into the big,
Then
I
you
guess
take
it'd
down
be-
the car.
yeah, the club, yeah. And then you bust in, and you have to take down the mob boss, and you're wielding dual Tommy guns.
Yeah. And he's on the stairs like a Scarface, just mowing you down.
Yeah, and it's just fun.
I quite like the Notre Dame level. I think that's probably my favourite one, where you're taking out the gargoyles and you're saving maidens, and then there's this huge monster at the end, like in the church.
I had a hard time with that level. Took me a few tries.
Yeah, you've kind of got to be very careful. You've got to be aware of certain things.
Yeah.
I found that I'd kill the maidens quite often, or just allow them to die. The fire can be a bit dangerous in that level as well, with the
Yes.
flaming zombies.
And if
Yeah, I was
you're
gonna
on
say-
fire and you walk up to them, they're on fire, and then you
Yeah,
fail the mission.
And then things just get worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say, yeah, that's the level that teaches you that zombies don't burn to death.
Yeah. Fire's not good.
It's a little bit of chaos.
Yeah. The Wild West level's really cool as well. I like
It
that one.
is.
That was my favorite one, and the music in that level is awesome as well.
Yeah. And then there's a dude at the end in the mines you've got to kill. Yeah. It's good. But yeah, I really like the locations in Time Splitters 2. Time Splitters 3 has some good levels, but I think having individual levels in different areas definitely makes the game feel quite unique. Because in Time Splitters 3, you've got some levels which are which are 2 levels long, and you've got some levels that are quite similar, and they're not as memorable. But in this, everyone's different, and all of them you can remember. Neo Tokyo has its problems, but you still remember it, and it's different from the level before and the level after. And yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of variety to the game.
So another way you know that this was made by the same guys who did Perfect Dark and GoldenEye is as you crank up the difficulty, you get more objectives.
Yes, and there's actually more to the levels. You'll play through a level on a harder difficulty, and it's oh, I've actually got to do more things now. The level's still continuing. The Time Splitter portal's not activated at this point. I've got to wait a bit longer. On the Siberia one, instead of being in the the bit after the labs, you've got to go on top of the dam and take out a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't easy.
No, it's not.
No.
And it's not much easier with in co-op either. Did anybody play co-op?
No.
I have played it before, but not this time.
That was
But-
my last experience. It does have a really good co-op feel.
Yeah. I mean, the game is really focused towards multiplayer, and, with multiplayer games, co-op is, pretty good in it. So that's another thing as well. I mean, you mentioned about similarities to Perfect Dark, but Perfect Dark has a pretty robust multiplayer, and this game kind of does that as well. There's definitely a lot of, configurable options to the multiplayer.
Oh yes, and you can play with just bots too. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I did a few deathmatch levels with just bots. It was quite fun.
The good thing is you get all the unlockables at the start, and you get all the things at the start to play with, and the unlockables are based on the characters. So instead of unlocking new levels or new weapons for multiplayer, instead you're unlocking characters to play as. So they're kind of aesthetic unlockables. And there's loads of them. There's an absolute shit ton of characters to unlock. There's like a guy with a goldfish for a head and...
Yeah, and I was about to say they returned and had a odd job moment as well.
Yeah,
where
plays a monkey.
Like the monkey and the goldfish robot
Yeah.
are shorter than everybody else. And it doesn't help.
They knew exactly what they were doing, including those.
Yeah, it was shameless.
Yeah. But it's cool. Some of the characters are just so crazy, and you're like, these are weird. But it's good. Again, like with No Lives Forever, it gives the game like a certain degree of charm because it's very fitting with the game because the game is kind of silly.
It is a little silly. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Another fun thing with the multiplayer, I don't know if anybody ever got their hands on it or tried it out. It has a level creator, and there's a lot of options in it. You can do some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, this time I didn't try it out, but I have tried it out before. I remember trying to remake a couple of GoldenEye maps using it to varying degrees of success. But yeah, it's a reasonable level creator.
I know back in the day we had, my brother and I, there was a level that he made for Capture the Bag, where it was basically 2 towers, and you had to go all the way down one tower to the middle, and then climb the other tower to get the bag, and then make it all the way down and across. So it was a bit of a gauntlet.
Oh wow!
To score a point, but it was just an absolute riot. And then there was like another one he did where it was mostly just an open room with the grenade launcher as the primary weapon available. So it was just fire everywhere. Because a lot of the guns, we didn't mention that. A lot of the guns have alt fire.
Oh, yeah.
And alt ones, so like the minigun, you can hit the alt fire and it just puts it on an auto wind up. Which, why wouldn't it doesn't burn itself out. It doesn't like have to stop or cool down. So like as soon as you get the minigun, you go click and it's on.
Yeah.
But you're also advertising that you have a minigun.
Well, in multiplayer, definitely. But in the...
Oh, single player, no.
In the single, like the 2 missions in single player where they give you a minigun.
But to be fair, on multiplayer, with it being split screen, people can see you've got a minigun anyway.
Everyone knows you have a minigun.
So
they can just look at your screen.
So there is a community that still plays the PS2 version through LAN play.
Really?
I found their Discord and I actually played a couple of matches, and oh my god, that's the most fun I've had in a very long time.
That's amazing.
So you gotta have the GameCube version.
I actually have the network adapter for that, and you can still use it. I was just using the PS2 version at the time. But yeah, that's wild. I remember as a kid trading the maps too. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, cause it was like what, Tony Hawk's and I think Time Splitters were really the 2 games that had map editors in it. That was just really unheard of at the time. And I guess Halo 3, when that came out,
Forge.
Yeah, with Forge.
Yeah, putting in Forge, but before that it was really unheard of. Outside of like, on PC people would mod maps and that sort of thing, but for consoles it was like, what? And with this level of customization, it was wild.
You can do some really, really crazy shit.
Yeah.
Did anybody tap into the challenges? Because Time Splitters 2 had challenge mode.
Yes, back in the day, I platinumed all of them.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not easy. Like, I know that some of them in particular are quite tough. Like, I remember, I think it was the first set of challenges where you're throwing bricks through windows.
Yeah.
And you have to get the right precision, which using a GameCube controller isn't easy to do. I don't know whether getting precision is easier on the PS2 controller, but using the C-stick on the GameCube controller makes those challenges a bit of a pain in the ass. And there was another one as well. There's a zombie one where you have to fight waves of zombies that were quite cool. And I remember there was a story classic, and those were based on the original Time Splitters levels. Those levels were quite fun because you had to basically beat them within a time limit. And then you had the silly monkey levels at the end, like one where you've got to shoot monkeys with a minigun. That was fun.
Yeah.
What about you
run away.
guys?
One of them was like you have to run away from like flaming monkeys or something like that.
Yeah, you got to kill all these flaming monkeys.
I saw the challenges on the menu, but I didn't dip into that.
They are kind of neat. Like there's one where you actually play as a monkey and you've got to pick up bananas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
I played like one or two of them when, Adam, you reminded me that existed, because I was really focused on trying to finish the single player for our review. I do remember playing them way back when and having a ton of fun, but...
Yeah, the ones in Time Splitters 2 are pretty fun. As I say, apart from some of the aiming issues with the GameCube controller, I find the ones in Time Splitters 2 to be great. The ones in Time Splitters 3 can get a bit iffy with some of them, but Time Splitters 2, I think it's worth at least getting a gold medal in them, even if you don't go for platinum.
Sure. Just experience them.
Yeah, definitely. But the game's got like a lot of content. The single player is not the longest experience, but the good thing is because they're quite unique, you'll want to replay them because they're all individual experiences. And yeah, then you've got like all the multiplayer, the co-op, the challenges. There's a lot to the game.
Well, I played it through on easy because, of course, I did, and I blasted through it in an afternoon. So it isn't that long. Obviously, putting it up on high difficulties would lengthen that out. But even though it didn't take me that long, I still had a hell of a fun time playing it. With it being like spiritual successor to GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, I did really enjoy Perfect Dark, but I'm sorry, N64 lovers, your controller is shit, and the PS2 controller playing that kind of game is just so much better.
Nah, I think the first-person shooters, the N64 is the best controller.
I
as long as you got one in each hand and you're doing it that way.
No. You've just got to be using Control Style 1.2 on GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, Turok style, and no problem. Easy peasy.
I ended up playing this. They make PS4 adapters for the PS2, and that's what I was playing with. It was really smooth, actually.
I want to say that there's a mod for Time Splitters 2 where they're basically doing an HD rebuild of the game.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know if they're redoing the story, but they're definitely doing the multiplayer. They got permission from the whoever owns the rights to do that, because it's kind of been in limbo. And I found out there was an Easter egg in one of the I can't think of what it's called. It was a really bad Xbox One game, but you get halfway through the game and there's a little arcade, and it lets you play through the first two levels of Time Splitters 2 in HD on the Xbox One.
Oh, really?
It was Homefront Revolution, I think. It's like
neat.
the most odd Easter egg. I found the game for really cheap. I was like, let's go ahead and do it. And it was kind of fun, but it wasn't the full game, which made me sad. It was just the first two levels, the Chicago level and the
Siberia.
Yeah.
Nice.
The downside of that is having to
play Homefront.
Yeah.
You have to play
You have to
Homefront?
play a good chunk of that game. It's real bad.
Yeah,
I'd
I'll
say
bet
the
it's not the
reward's
best.
not worth the risk, but it was still neat. It's one of those things where it's like I got myself into that mess, so it might as well see it through. But I thought that would be a fun tidbit to mention on here, because it's not in Right's Hell, but not in Right's Hell the way No One Lives Forever is, but they're having trouble figuring out how to do a remaster, because it was the Crisis Group, I think, has the rights right now, and they're not doing so hot, basically because Homefront did so poorly. That was their last hurrah, and it needed to do well, and it did.
Well, I guess now, I guess as of last fall, Koch Media, they did Dead Island and Metro.
Oh, okay.
They have acquired the rights to it.
Oh, good.
Oh, yes, I heard about that. Yeah. I remember hearing about that. Cool.
Because I really do believe that Time Splitters deserves either an HD re-release or just a reboot.
Yeah, I think a reboot would be quite cool.
Oh, Time Splitters Rewind is what the
Yeah.
is.
That's one I've heard of.
Yeah, look at that. It's in the actual rights are in the hands of someone who can actually do something with it. Cool. Yeah, Koch Media. Neat. There's
That's
something to
cool.
look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully they do something with it, because it's been a long time since Time Splitters 3.
Neato burrito. Well, yeah, and if I want to say too, like going back to the thing because we're talking about Time Splitters Rewind, and they were basically making essentially Time Splitters 4, starting off with a fully revamped multiplayer. One of the things you could do in the map editor, I never figured out how to do it. You could actually create campaigns. Like, you could create mission maps.
Oh.
And it was really complicated on how to do it, but you could dump in NPCs and you could dump in objectives after you've built your map.
Nice.
So, yeah, if you really need a little bit extra Time Splitters in your life and you have enough time to figure out how that works.
Yeah, do it yourself.
I've owned the game for over 10 years now, well over 10 years now. I still don't know how it works.
Well, I've owned the game for 4 weeks, so I've got no chance.
But yeah, they're good games, the Time Splitter games. I've not played the first one, but Time Splitters 2 and 3 are both really good. And, you know, if you guys like Time Splitters 2, then I'd recommend grabbing the third. It's still pretty good.
Yeah, I'll have to pick that up.
I'll probably try to track down copies of the whole series.
Yeah, a lot of people prefer the third to the second for some reason. I personally don't, but it's still a good game. All right, so with that, we've got all 5 of those games covered. We'll take a break and we'll discuss which of them was our favourite. See you then. Okay, so those were the 5 games we covered this time. We had Half-Life, Doom, Time Splitters 2, No One Lives Forever, and Halo 2, although not necessarily in that order. So now it's the part of the show where we pick our favourite. Well, I'll go first. Out of the other 4 games, the one that's my favourite is definitely Half-Life. It was one of my favourites growing up. And even to this day, I still love the game a hell of a lot. I think, you know, people say that it's quite dated these days, but I don't see it. I think the game holds up really, really well, and it's just a great blast to play. I mean, I can see where Matt's coming from with like some of the platforming, but for me, it's so ingrained into my consciousness that it's just not an issue for me. So my pick is definitely going to be Half-Life. Okay, what about you guys? So Matt, what's your pick going to be?
Well, I enjoyed most of the games, apart from Halo 2, which was okay. But the one that I definitely had the most fun with was Time Splitters 2. It's just a fun romp through a lot of different kind of scenarios. There's a lot of variety to it, both in terms of the way it plays and the way it looks. And it's just something that I had fun blasting through in an afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Time Splitters 2 is a fantastic experience. What about you, Ryan?
I know I bitched about it a lot in the segment, but I think the game I liked the best was actually No One Lives Forever, based on just the atmosphere and the amount of fun. Clearly, the amount of fun they had playing it. The humor was just so, and mechanically, I didn't enjoy it too much, and I'm going to try and get my hands on PlayStation because it sounds like Steven had a slightly better time with it there than I did. It provided me the most entertainment and the most frustration.
Fair enough. Okay, what about you then, Steve?
See, I'm kind of torn between No One Lives Forever and Doom, because Doom was, you know, it's a lot of fun, you know, always. I liked the potential of No One Lives Forever, so I guess I'll go with that one just because it was something different and it's really interesting, and I'm, gonna definitely go back and check out the rest of it.
Good lad. Okay, and John, out of the other 4 games, obviously not including Half-Life, which was your favourite?
So this was a really tough one. This entire list was perfect, and if I could choose all of them, I would. I'm gonna start by saying that Half-Life and Doom are really high up there for me. And No One Lives Forever, I fell in love with the style of the game, and I'm really happy I finally had an excuse to play it. And Halo 2 is just Halo 2. I just have such love for the nostalgia factor for all of these games. But out of that, the one I haven't mentioned is Time Splitters 2. That game I am still going back to and playing currently, and I'm probably going to play online after we wrap this up. So it's probably a big surprise for everyone, but I'm going to choose Time Splitters 2.
Okay, nice one. Well, as you say, they're all brilliant choices.
Yes.
I don't think I dislike any of them. I'd say Halo 2 for me, I just consider good. But the rest of them, fantastic. So I think we had a really strong lineup this month. So it's a good month for you to join. Better than some of the other shit we've had. Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it.
It was TMNT, and I've only put it on the list once.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
far.
It's
Keep the dream alive, man.
Well, okay. You also gave us Altered Beast, so.
I didn't pick Altered Beast.
No, that
Oh,
was
that's
me.
right. That's right. You did that to us.
Yeah.
That's true. I'm giving Ryan flack, but in all honesty, it's Stephen and his RPGs that get me.
Well, and you annoy me with your platformers, so I guess we all piss each other off.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, none of us are ever going to forget Super Monkey Ball Adventure.
Yeah, there's that one.
It was a guilty pleasure episode. You didn't expect it to be fantastic, did you? Right. Well, anyway, that's a long episode that we're just about to wrap up. But we have something special for you. I've got a little bit of a quiz. Only a tiny quiz, but something to test your knowledge of first-person shooters.
Ooh.
So we'll have a little bit of a rest after that long episode. And we'll finish with something a little bit lighthearted. So I'll see you then. Well, now that we've covered those 5 games, we've got something a little bit different now. I've prepared a little bit of a quiz for you guys. It's a special
Right.
quiz, a little bit different to normal, and it's going to be based on first-person shooters. Are you all very familiar with first-person shooters?
I mean, more familiar
not
than
to
I
a
was
huge
at the beginning of the
extent.
month.
Enough.
Kind of
Well,
my
don't-
specialty.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, these are going to be based on mainly classic first-person shooters, although there are some more modern ones in here too, but mainly classic ones. What you have to do is you have to tell me the title of the first-person shooter. What I will do is I will give you a clue, and the clue will be made up of antonyms, so opposite words. I'll give you an example. If we have full death, the title will be
Half-Life.
exactly. It will become clear as soon as you hear the title. What I want you to do is to buzz in, just shout out your name, and then I'll get the answer from you. All set?
Yep.
Sounds
Yes.
good to me.
Okay,
I'll take
nice.
first-person shooter for 200, Alex.
Well, here we go with that first one. We'll start with something quite simple, hopefully. Number 1. Everybody dies never.
John,
John, what's the
no
answer?
one lives forever.
No one lives forever. That's correct. Number 2. Silver Nose.
Matt, GoldenEye.
Matt. GoldenEye. Very good. Number 3. Motionless.
Steven.
Stephen.
Full Throttle?
Incorrect.
Yeah.
Anybody else? This one's a bit of a nippy one, but it's Quake.
Oh,
That's a stretch. Come on.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but a Quake is full of motion, and Motionless is without a Quake. I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch, but I tried my best. Okay, number 4. Light Persuasions.
Light Persuasions?
Steven.
Stephen.
Dark Deception.
No, but you're close. Think Star Wars.
John,
John?
Dark Forces.
Dark Forces. See, you're not persuading, you're forcing. See, it sort of fits. Come on.
So many grids. I love it.
Number 5. Leave Buried. And I'll give you a clue, this might be more difficult to the Americans. It's a Saturn game.
Oh,
Yeah, that helps.
It's
What
a
was the
game
clue?
we've done on the podcast.
oh yeah, Ryan.
Ryan.
Exhumed.
Exhumed.
Oh,
Very good.
So
Power
that's
Slave
Power
in
Slave.
America. Yeah, exactly. But I was trying to think of another one for Power Slave as well, and I couldn't, so I thought, sod it. Leave buried. Okay, well done, Ryan. You've got a point. Next one. This one's definitely a stretch. Number 6. Duchess Savem 2D.
John,
John.
Duke Nukem 3D.
Duke Nukem 3D. That was definitely a push. I couldn't think of what the opposite for nuke them would be. So I thought save them.
Definitely work.
Diplomatize them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Roll for
Not nuke
diplomacy.
them? I don't know. Okay. Number 7. Native versus Prey.
Matt.
Oh,
Steven.
Ryan.
I'm going to give it to Stephen.
Alien versus Predator.
Alien vs Predator. Very good. Number 8. Orthodox. I'll give you a clue. It's a very old first-person shooter. A Doom clone.
You just there's 900 of those.
Yeah, that doesn't help too much.
I
It's quite a
Oh,
popular
Matt.
one. Matt.
Heretic.
Heretic. Very good.
yeah, I couldn't get away from all the other religious opposites, like
Yeah.
Reform or Roman Catholic.
I've not played the Roman Catholic first-person shooter.
I would love if there was one.
Isn't that
I
Noah's
mean,
Ark 3D?
I played Noah's Ark, and that you kind of a stretch there, but maybe.
Maybe. I mean, that could be Roman Catholic 3D. Yeah, possibly. Okay. The final two are relatively straightforward. So, number 9, Space Joiners.
Oh, Ryan.
Ryan.
Time Splitters.
Time Splitters, of course it is.
Should hope so. It was my pick this month.
Yeah. Final one. Number 10, Broken Light.
Oh, Ryan.
Ryan.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
So, in last place, we have Stephen
Yo.
with 1 point. Never mind. Thanks a lot for coming. Next, we have Matt with 2 points.
Yay.
A fair effort. And in joint first place, we have both Ryan and John with 3 points each.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Okay. Not too bad. Well done, guys, and thanks a lot for playing.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah. Right, well, we've gone through all the games, we've had the quiz, so now it's just time to say goodbye. Thanks a lot, John, for coming on. It's been great having you. We've had a nice little conversation with you, and I hope you enjoyed your time with us.
Likewise, and I have. Thank you.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll have some, more interaction in the future, even if it's just a general chinwag.
I'm down for a chin wag.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what that is.
A chinwag? It's British for talking, like a
Okay.
conversation.
Oh, that
Like a
makes
jaw.
sense.
How do you not
A
know
jaw
what a
flapping.
chinwag is?
A fellow
Because-
jaw flapping.
We're having
That
a
is-
yaw.
Is
Yeah,
jaw
that-
flapping the American for chinwag?
No,
Yeah, that's a little bit. That's a little bit more familiar.
it might be a southern thing.
Yeah,
We're
the
having a
the
jaw
southern one.
flapping today.
Yeah, the southern one would be having a yaw.
Having a yaw.
Yeah, it gets weird in the south.
Is that even a word? A yaw?
It is now.
That
It
sounds
is
like
in the
half a word. It sounds like they've forgotten what the second half of the word is. I'm having a yawn. Where was I? Right. Nice. Okay, well, see you all next month.
See ya.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.